Warning, this episode contains cozy Christmas vibes, cute-ass witches, healthy boundaries, and bonus material. Also, there will be spoilers for the entire book of The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandanna. Happy holidays, everybody!
Is this a podcast, or is this just fantasy? We're just two nerds and we love our fantasy. So join us if you want to nerd out. Time to start the podcast and see. Anyway, here's the show.
Hello, readers. I'm Dane Patterson, the host who is kind, but maybe not always nice.
And I'm Jacqui Lanier, and is this a podcast or is this just fantasy? The podcast where we also might not mind a little winter nap under the sunflowers? I mean, I guess I'm a habitual holiday overcommitter, but it does sound cozy, right?
Super cozy.
Just a little break from the hustle and bustle of the season.
Put a little hoodie on, lay down. Anyway, if you'd like to support us on Patreon, there is a link in the show notes. And if you can or just don't want to, we totally understand. And just ask that you please rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast.
Yes, and whether you're joining us for the first time or the 24th time, don't forget to follow us on social media. We try to post our most up-to-date scheduling and book announcements on TikTok at Is This Just Fantasy Pod or on Instagram at Just Fantasy Pod.
Yeah, and if you're new today just for this book, welcome.
Welcome. It's fun here. A little unhinged, but mostly fun.
I love that. That's probably a good description of us.
That's our tagline, right? Officially.
Yeah, I think
it's in the branding.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this episode we wanted to do something special for the holidays. We hope you're having lots of holiday cheer. And if not, and it's the middle of summer when you're hearing this because you're behind on the podcast, we hope it's a day full of magic and stardust.
I mean, summer's got a solstice. It still applies. I could get with it.
Something about a Seder we could throw in here. I don't know. There's something going on. For this bonus material, we are going to dive into a book called The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandanna. So if you're here from Aragon land... This is not an Aragon book.
No, buckle up. This is very different, very fun. And I would say in terms of this book, the TikTok hype maybe got to us a little bit because we wanted to check out what's widely regarded as the quintessential cozy fantasy book.
Yes.
And when it happened to be set during the holidays after we read it, we were like, yes, let's dig into it on the pod. Let's have a fun little treat because we deserve a little holiday treat. Everybody does.
You deserve
it. You're worth it, girl.
But before we dive right into the book, I wanted to get us in the cozy mood.
Okay.
And ask you, Jacqui,
yes.
how do you stay cozy when it's nice and cold on winter days?
Oh, it's not cold. I live in beachside Southern California.
That's true.
You mean
I'm from Colorado. I
mean
guess.
a blustery 62?
Yes, when it's windy,
a little overcast.
Yeah, there's
absolutely frigid. I actually have been known to turn because my house is not equipped to heat because it doesn't need it. I have a janky old wall heater that I will crank on when when the temperature drops below 70.
Oh my God.
The wall heater's on. I do though. I like a vibe. So I like to light a candle. I like to snuggle on the couch. I like it when it rains, which also is never where I live. But that's why I come here to Denver to get 1 week of winter.
Yeah.
And then I'm going home to the sunshine.
Yeah, it's snowing right now, right?
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I was just thinking.
You must have
I like
a set plan.
I like to sit by the fire with a sweater.
Yeah.
Some sweatpants.
Yes.
Kind of relax, have a hot drink. I like hot coffee. You know?
I never drink hot coffee.
Yeah.
Also, notably, even here when it is snowing.
Yeah, you're drinking cold coffee.
We were walking around that snowy Christmas market and I almost got an iced coffee and I was like, no, that's a bridge too far, probably.
This is the time to get hot coffee.
I didn't get a coffee at all.
You just went cold.
Just to be clear. I just didn't get iced coffee, which is kind of a step for me.
That's a good step for you though. I get cozy and then I have this oversized sweater.
Oh.
It's for someone, I don't know, 10 times my size. I just like to feel cozy.
Hell yeah. I feel like I just create a cozy aesthetic, even though the weather will not deliver on blustery outside, cozy inside. So I'm just
create it more.
Yes. What if I just made things appear cozy and then I will feel cozy?
It's all about the vibes.
If you can dream it, you can do it.
It's the American dream. It's the American way. Well, I guess it's time to get out of America and into England and right to this. Yeah.
We are having British tea. Speaking of cozy.
Yes, we have scones.
Way too many pastries.
We did have a lot of cake before this episode.
It was really good cake.
We got some,
and I think our main character would be proud of this tea spread.
We tried.
She loves a pastry. She loves sweets.
What's your tea? My tea is hibiscus.
I'm doing Earl Grey because I'm on brand,
Yeah.
Because Britain.
Because Britain. Okay.
If we have British listeners, I'm so sorry already.
Yeah, we're ruining everything.
But
and
this
we
book
apologize.
was great, and we just want to know. We wish we knew more about British culture.
We know about as much as Harry Potter taught us. And that's about it.
That's kind of my. It's a problem I have in a lot of areas of my life.
Right.
I know about what Harry Potter taught.
All right, let's jump into chapters 1 through 5. And first, before anything, I don't know if it's just British people or just this book or because I'm listening to it and I love Samara McLaren's voice.
Yeah.
But the tone of this book is instantly just so fun.
Yeah.
And so cheeky.
I feel like we're getting very Anglophile right off the bat. This book is turning us.
Yes, and I love the vibe right from the get-go.
Yeah.
So we start this book with a group of witches in England, and they meet on the third Thursday of every third month, and never in the same place more than
Easy
once.
to remember.
Yeah. And the meeting we come into this story during is on a pier in the Outer Hebrides, which I think is out there in some island north of Scotland.
Yes.
It's October,
Yes. Too far north. Too cold.
Yeah. Also of note when preparing for this episode, I always remember this book as first person, but it's actually, I think, third person limited, which I only bring up because I love the voice of this book.
Yeah.
And I just always think of it when we came back to write as first person, but it's not. It's not Mika Moon's voice. It's just the narrator.
The voice feels specific, but it is just the tone of
Yeah.
the book as a whole versus it being our main character's specific voice.
Which doesn't happen to me often. So already I was just I love this narrator's voice.
Yeah.
Which is specific.
Yeah.
Anyway, we meet our main protagonist, Mika Moon, at this pier in the freezing cold at the secret meeting of witches. It's about as fantasy as it gets.
Yeah.
But we are in modern day UK. And also, another fun aside real quick. There is no name for this group, but Mika Moon calls it the Very Secret Society of Witches, just to annoy their leader, Primrose.
Yeah.
And Primrose immediately gives me Dolores Umbridge vibes.
I could totally see that. I think I got the same, I don't hate her on sight, but she does have that same, proper, dainty, air about her.
I don't know if it's the name Primrose.
Yes.
It sounds very Dolores, but I'm picturing...
Just implies prim and proper.
Yeah.
Lots of china and pink frilly
Exactly.
suits.
I'm picturing pink tweed right off the bat.
100%.
Anyway, there are 21 witches at this meeting. Mika knows there are more witches in England, but they've turned down Primrose's invite to join the society. This small group doesn't speak other than at this meeting. So no texts, no emails.
No.
They have to be separate because magic will be noticed if this many witches are gathered, and they can't have anything that connects them so they can all stay safe.
Yes, the rules.
Yes. So basically it's Fight Club, right? Because the first rule of Fight Club is you can't talk about Fight Club.
Oh my God.
Wait, Primrose isn't Dolores. She's Tyler Durden. That's what this is.
I have a harder time aesthetically connecting those two, but I could get behind it. If you're going to sell it, I'll pick it up.
And we learned that Mika has a YouTube channel where she pretends to be a witch, which I do not get this. Doesn't that kind of defeat the whole secret society purpose?
I mean, contradictions. This book is complex, like an onion.
Yeah, Mika Moon is a complex lady.
Yeah.
But she's been on she's been a YouTube streamer for the past year, so we know Mika's cool.
Is that what makes somebody cool? We're on YouTube.
Yeah.
Does that make us cool?
Let's not.
Do I have something in common with beautiful, sunshiny Mika Moon?
Well, we're podcasters, Jax.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
But it is technically on YouTube.
So we're cooler?
Yes.
Okay.
Right? No? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm sure my parents are proud of me. We learned some things about witches in this section. That witches are cursed to be orphans.
Yes.
Kind of
sad.
a bummer. Mika's a third-generation Indian woman who was adopted by Primrose and taken to England. It seems like Primrose was not a mother figure, but more of a caregiver that gave Mika a string of nannies and tutors.
Yes, she was around. She's
Isn't that all British children?
She's Mika's silent investor.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that all British children?
Aren't all British people raised this way?
Yes, famously, don't British people only show affection to horses and dogs?
If you're British and we are offending you,
so
we are so
sorry.
sorry. Anyway, I'm going to move right along. Further, Mika has only seen Primrose at these meetings for the last 13 years.
Wild.
So not very close.
No.
And they share spells at these meetings and gossip, which sounds Sounds dope.
Mostly gossip.
If I could gossip with my friends but also get magic
Oh,
spells,
dude. 20 out of 10.
it would increase gossiping exponentially.
I would do nothing but gossip. If that was how I got the spells.
Yeah, I would gossip all the time.
Yes. Right now, we don't.
There is a funny, not you and me. There is a funny bit about witchcore and cottagecore and how witches are totally in right now.
Yes.
Is this true? Do you think witches are in right now?
100%.
Okay.
Yes. The witchy vibes. I mean, I feel like it started with, kind of a resurgence of 70s witchy Stevie Nicks
Okay.
kind of a situation.
Yeah.
And then it morphed. I think it's getting more and more mainstream. And now
So like
it
rocker girl met crystal girl and they merged into witch girl kind of.
I mean, I just think they're all flavors of witchcore, Because I think this book is more like you said, cottage witchcore, or like
Yes.
country witchcore, cozy witchcore, where Stevie Nicks is like dark witchcore.
I sing with my divorced husband on stage.
Yes, that kind of
Cottagecore.
witchcore.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
There is in this part in these early chapters, like just a section that I really love. While Mika is explaining that her videos aren't going to get her caught as a real witch,
Yeah.
the narrator is like, unfortunately for Mika, in that very moment, and then it cuts to this guy Ian be like, she's a witch.
That's right.
Yeah, I love it.
like that like sharp cutaway, just that humor positioned like in the narrative. That was fun.
Yeah, and like it doesn't happen at all in the rest of this book. I don't
That's
think the
true.
narrator switches. So it's just this once.
You know
and
what?
it's
I love when
effective.
you've hit a joke so solidly, you're like, don't need to pick it up again.
I'll leave it be.
That was it. Crushed it.
And through that we meet our other cast of characters. There's a librarian named Jamie,
Yes.
a retired actor named Ian, and a housekeeper named Lucy. Jamie is lean, devastatingly handsome, who is mostly irritable and finds Mika pretty just right off the bat.
Yes.
In the next chapter, I think Mika describes his face as like all hard planes and ankles.
Yeah, he's got a jawbone that could cut glass, probably. One of
pretty
those
much.
kind of book boyfriends.
Yeah. Ian is a skinny 82-year-old in a rainbow scarf with a twinkle in his eye. He seems sassy and
Yes.
can see Mika's magic. He's also extremely confident.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. Lucy is I'm sorry. I feel sorry for Lucy. Lucy is a chubby woman in her 50s, and she kind of just seems like the peacemaker, quiet one that's like, oh, honey.
Everyone's
you know?
okay. I feel like she has that like calming energy for this group of like eccentric characters,
Yeah. I think that's what it is. She's the most, kind of just normal.
Yes, I
Maybe
think that's why
Ken,
you get
you
the
know?
like peacemaker vibes, because she's
Yeah.
just like, oh, everybody, you're all so wild. Calm
Bring it
down.
Yeah. Ian's husband, Ken, is also a character here. He's the gardener and a rugged-looking Japanese man.
Yes.
So we got a beautiful cast.
Yes.
Where this new cast is also pretty magical. We are in a
Yeah.
place called, my favorite name for an estate, by the way, Nowhere House.
I do like that.
I love it. But better than that, we are in a library that looks out on a garden and the fucking sea.
Yes.
It's a fucking seaside manor, Jax.
You gotta have a seaside manor. If we're not in a seaside manor, what's been the point?
It's already so cozy.
Yes.
Am I a basic bitch? Because I am loving this.
I mean, yes. I think that's the point of basic bitchiness, is that we all inside. That's why it's basic.
I love it. Jump to Mika getting the email from this other cast of characters to come teach magic to 3 young girls at their seaside estate. Mika drives there in her car. She calls the broomstick.
Yeah.
And I love that. What would your vehicle be called?
Oh shit. My witch car?
Because really the broomstick kind of is the only
Yeah.
transportation of witches.
That's true. As far as I'm
Would you
aware.
call it the Stardust or
the apparition? The apparator.
Perfect. The
Speaking
apparator.
of Harry Potter.
Yeah. I don't know if there is a better one.
No, I think she
nailed
something
it.
that you nail it. We don't have any other, I don't think in this book we get any other witch cars with names.
Yeah. Because I wrote
Sangu
that.
was like, I crushed it. That's it.
She's like, that's the one.
Yeah.
Anyway, Nowhere House is getting even more charming the more we see of it. After Mika meets all the adults, there's a bit of a cat and mouse game between Ian and Mika where she pretends not to be a real witch, and Ian tries to convince her that there are 3 young witches, and their guardian Lillian of Nowhere
Yes.
is also a witch. It's pretty fun here. The vibe that I get is that Ian is the group's kind of mouthpiece, being that
Okay.
he's a great showman and can actually see the magic.
Yeah.
But Mika is not convinced until Jamie just walks her to the back of the house and shows her the backyard where 3 girls
He's
are
like,
playing.
behold,
Yeah.
witches.
And there's dust around them, and then Yeah, it gets wild. So
Yeah.
the oldest is Rosetta. She's 10 years old.
Okay.
She was found in London when she was 3 months old after her family died in a fire. She's described as long-limbed with very dark brown skin and thick coils of dark hair in a ponytail.
Yes.
Second is Terracotta. She's 8 years old, found in a small Vietnamese town when she was only a year old after her parents died of a fever.
Okay.
She's described as having peachy skin and shiny black hair to her shoulders.
Yes.
And then the youngest is Altamira, 7 years old, found in the rubble of a Palestinian hospital when she was only a few days old. She's described as having a messy dark brown braid and brownish gold skin.
Yes.
And all of their stories are very
Super sad. Well, I think it makes a lot of sense. I kind of like the way this is positioned because she tells you up front, like, oh,
Yeah.
all witches are orphans. And you're like, you just kind of take it in as like world building at
Okay,
first.
yeah.
And then this is more show, don't tell. Like, witches are sad. They all have a tragic backstory that is
Yeah.
just inherent in being magical in this world.
It's built into
Yeah.
these. So it's a bunch of, sad people.
Yes.
Obviously, the girls were all named after famous archaeological discoveries.
Yeah.
Lillian is an archaeologist.
Yes.
The Rosetta Stone, which is that Egyptian stone slab that was very important to understanding ancient hieroglyphs, as it had 3 different writing systems that they also had the same thing.
Yeah.
So she's named after that. Altamira, which is the cave in Spain, famous for being the first place in the world where prehistoric paintings and engravings were ever found. And terracotta, which we all know is fired clay, but I will assume is a reference to the framed terracotta army, which is 8,000 statues of soldiers in China buried with the first emperor of China to defend him in the afterlife. It was found by a farmer in the 70s.
Oh, was it found by a farmer?
It was found by a farmer,
Oh,
and
I
that
didn't know
farmer
that.
still works at that museum. It
Wait,
is
for real?
Yeah,
How-
so like in China, well, the way I get it is like he found it. They're like, cool, you work here now forever. And that's
You are
what
the
he
guardian
does,
of
is
the
vibe.
guardians.
Now, I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure. Did you know how they did it? Like the terracotta army thing, just as like an aside?
how they got there?
Like, no, how they made the terracotta army. Like, do you know how they made it?
Not, I mean, presumably not firing clay. It's
So,
not the answer
they
you're
did-
looking for.
They had like a bunch of different faces and a bunch of different bodies.
Oh.
And then they would put them together.
Mix and match.
But then they would have another station where they would like augment and add other things.
Oh.
So that each one was
The flare
unique.
station?
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that is cool.
Anyway, we get a bit about witch fire. Just quick pivot back to the book. When the youngest girl lights the ladder on fire with bright green flames.
Yes.
And it doesn't burn.
Oh.
Because obviously, Jackie, it's witch fire. And we know that only works in like cauldrons.
Witchfire only heats cauldrons. You
Yeah.
know what? I would be down for that. Like a single use heater.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't heat anything else up unnecessarily. It just like heats you.
It'd actually be perfect in San Diego. Because it wouldn't heat the actual room up. It wouldn't get any hotter.
Would basically just heat my feet.
Yeah.
They're the only thing that need warm.
And I love Ian here. I think Ian can see magic in people.
Yes.
As he explains here that he
Yeah.
knew about Mika from her video because she had a sparkle around her, which is just like what Mika described seeing in the girls just now.
Yeah.
This is not explicit, but I'm pretty sure this is real.
Yes.
Anyway, we learned that Lillian, the owner of Nowhere House, has put wards around the house which keep people from entering the property unless they are invited,
Mm-hmm.
and makes it hard for even those people who are invited to find it. She seems not to have taught the girls about magic
Anything.
at all, and she apparently hasn't explained anything to Ian, Ken, Jamie, or Lucy. Which
Yes,
is
everyone seems very light on details from Miss Lillian Nowhere.
wild. We also learn in more detail one of the reasons witches stay isolated. Magic is attracted to witches, and so more magic gathers when more than one witch is around. So a strong-willed person is absolutely essential to keeping the magic in line. The kids are losing control a lot
Yeah.
because not only are they untrained and children, they're having to handle more magic than a normal witch would actually need to. So
Yeah.
like 3 times more, I would assume.
Yes, mathematically that
Yeah.
makes sense. If this were a crunchy magic system, we'd have
Yeah.
specific.
If you've never heard us, I would break this down, but I don't know if I can. So
I do like the way this is premised, though. I think I like the flavor of it. If it's maybe lacking in a little, like, here are explicitly the rules and here is how they
Yeah.
function, I like that that magic is a physical entity in the universe, or like
Yeah.
an energy with these like gold dust motes, and it collects around witches for them to like pull from
and use.
and use. Yeah, I like that as a premise for
Well, yeah, we
magic.
also later in the book get something about the trees and their age and them having magic. I think it is very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
For
yeah.
a soft magic system, this is perfect. This
Yeah.
is the perfect level So I'm just speculating, though.
Yes.
None of this is true. I don't know if it's true. But anyway, we also learn of Edward. Lucy, Ken, and Jamie seem shocked that Ian didn't tell Mika about Edward.
Not Edward.
Yeah, Edward is Lillian's solicitor and loathes the caretakers of Nowhere House because it seems he takes issue with the gay couple, the Northern Irishman, and the 3 foreign children.
He seems like a peach.
Yeah, so Edward's a bigot, and he needs some documents from Lillian, and everyone is worried the girls will do magic when he's there.
Yes.
And the already mean lawyer will be worse when he finds out the foreigners are witches.
Makes sense.
Yeah. He apparently must come, and like this is funny about this book because like this is the stakes. The solicitor must come, and Lillian won't come home because she's in the middle of an excavation.
Yes.
It's like, okay. So they want Mika to teach the girls to control their magic before Edward comes to the 26th of December.
Okay.
Which is only in 6 weeks.
They have 6 weeks before the lawyer comes to the front door.
Yeah. Also, it's I think also how you know someone's a villain.
Yeah.
Because if you're successful, but also work right on or right after the holiday, you're probably evil. I don't know how that's
I don't
true.
trust that.
Yeah.
Immediately, no trust.
If you're like, no, I got to go back to lawyering on the 26th. It's like, I don't know.
It's like you also probably were lawyering on the 25th.
Yeah.
And we
on
don't
the
know
24th.
About that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I can trust you.
That's
Anyway,
fair.
there's a part after this that crushed me. Mika thinks of the loneliness she felt and love she deeply wanted when she was a
Yeah.
child. Seems like she had a rough childhood.
Yeah,
what we're
she's
getting.
kind of ruminating, seeing these 3 young witches. She's
Yeah.
like, ugh, my childhood sucks.
Yeah, I think it's a contrast too with these caretakers, and she's
Yes.
struggling to remember all the people that she was tutored and cared by.
Yeah.
Because they change so frequently.
Yeah.
So sad.
Really sad.
She found out and learned about magic alone as well,
Mm-hmm.
and she's always kind of been alone, which is why she puts on. This is my thing. I think this is why she puts on YouTube videos so she can like share a piece of herself to the world.
I think she kind of says that. She's like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to engage with a community that is like hinting at my identity, but like even then she's still not fully. It's like her avatar basically.
Yeah, it's like fake.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Mika decides to accept Ian's offer, and it was hard to hold tension in this section because I was like, of course she's going to do this.
Well, yeah.
The solicitor's coming, and that's the conflict of the book, it seems.
Yes.
There is a brief meeting with Mika's hot neighbor, Noah, after this.
That's right.
She goes home.
I forgot about the hot neighbor.
Yeah, don't forget about hot Noah.
Justice for Noah.
Yeah, Noah seems shocked about the sudden move. He
Yeah.
seems really sad, actually.
I know.
And we get this sad pattern of Mika's life and how she's so alone and separate from other people.
Yeah.
We also get some insights into Mika's lucky tea, which
Yes.
works for her neighbor.
Yes.
And I want lucky tea. It sounds amazing. I think maybe
You
right
need
before
it.
D&D,
Oh my God.
I could always drink my lucky, get them 20s, get them lucky tea going.
I feel like if you use it for nefarious purposes like that, though, it probably is like you will roll 20s, but you'll also roll 1s. Like you just never roll
That's
mid-range numbers if you use it for gaming.
Also, you can't tempt Lady Luck. She does not like being messed
No,
with.
you are fond of talking about your fickle mistress, Lady Luck.
Yeah, side note, I don't have a lot of, I'm not religious. I don't have a lot of like superstitions, but I do believe in Lady Luck. So
Yes. So, of course, you want this lucky tea.
yeah, I do want the lucky tea. Anyway, we also get a little scene with Terracotta, one of the 3 girls who's talking with Jamie about killing Mika.
Yes.
So not only do I instantly like Terracotta, this little psycho.
Yes, we love a young sociopath.
But I kind of love Jamie's parenting style here.
Oh, yeah.
He's asking her questions about her murder strategy. Also seems to be like truly like love this kid. And,
Yeah.
and he's tired. It's very late. He's really stressed about the
Yes.
situation. And so also is also, I get the vibe here, he is crushing on Mika already. There's a bit in this section that I'm like, are you like already thinking about her?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And I know, like, Jamie is stressed about having any outsiders in the house. He's so protective of the girls. And I just
Yeah.
really like how that shines through in his interaction with Terracotta, because you can tell, like, what he values, like what the stakes are for him and for their little family at Nowhere House.
Yeah. And I just, so I have a son, and like dealing when you're tired and stressed can sometimes be difficult, right?
Yeah.
But he just like puts it aside.
Yeah.
He's like, I love you, which I think is
Yes, we're going to talk about this insane thing you want to talk
That I-
about,
yeah, that
murdering
I-
your tutor.
that I don't like.
Yeah.
He's also worried about. Yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah.
Anyway, my section, I'm nearing the end of my first section, and it ends with moving day.
Yes.
Mika comes to move in. It's very awesome. She has a small little car, that broomstick,
Mm-hmm.
with she's magically essentially able to shrink everything.
Yes.
inside it?
I couldn't tell if like the stuff is smaller or the car space is larger.
Is it an extra dimensional space?
I feel like it's an extra dimensional space.
Definitely
that's
that. She even has a pond with koi in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This would be so helpful. I want this spell.
the koi pond?
Yes. I want the koi pond extra dimensional space.
Travel with koi. You travel for work. You would just be happier if you could do it with your koi pond.
I just want my koi around me. When Mika gets there, they're also shocked about her speed. It seems like she's able to get there really fast in her car. Mm-hmm. She made it like it's normally a 3 or 4 hour drive, and she made it in an hour.
Yes.
So I want that as well.
Yes.
No more traffic.
Yes, big same.
And don't worry if you read this book and you're like, Cersei, bring up Cersei, the beautiful, lovely dog.
Yes.
She's here.
Golden retriever.
She makes it.
Gotta be.
She's at home pretty much immediately.
Yes. Everybody loves her. She loves everybody.
Probably the only time I'm going to mention this dog because she's only used, Cersei is just happy. So
I'll bring her up.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
Terracotta doesn't come out to meet Mika. Surprise.
Yeah.
But the other girls introduce themselves. It's very nice. The house sounds lived in but clean. And we also learn that Lillian is a witch that doesn't like being photographed.
Yes. And I think Mika mentions like there are a couple other witches in the society that share that tick.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know, it just would be better if there weren't a footprint of me on this mortal coil. And you're like, oh, damn, that's kind of intense.
Yeah, she even go like, I don't know why. We like age and change.
Yeah, she's like, it's not like anyone's about to find like a 200-year-old. Like those ones that they're like, Nicolas Cage is a time traveler. She's like,
well,
that's not
true.
really going to happen.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I forget about
and Keanu Reeves is a vampire. Anyway, it turns out her room is in the attic, and this sounds lovely to everything. I'm going to say this a lot because everything just sounds lovely.
Yeah.
It's large, almost half the size of Nowhere House, has a balcony that overlooks the sea.
Yeah.
The walls have been freshly painted. The wood has been polished to a shine. It's furnished with essentials, but enough open room to decorate herself.
Yeah.
I want to live here.
Yes, 100%.
Right away in the attic, Altamira is hovering off the ground, which... These witches can fly and levitate too.
Yes.
This is so cool.
Just like on accident.
Yeah. I don't even think she notices at first.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah. But we get our first magic lesson.
Okay.
We learn that levitation can be quite dangerous if you can't get back down, which does make a lot of sense. And then we learn a little bit about like how the magic works. So spells need intent.
Okay.
They also need the how.
Okay.
They also need the what.
Okay.
And it kind of seems like you just talk in your head to the magic.
Yes.
The hard part can be getting magic to listen to you, which is why a witch's spell book in this world are not like actual spells like abracadabra or things we think about like that, but snippets of conversation that worked on the magic.
Yeah.
It's basically a diary full of what worked on magic because magic is mischievous.
Yeah.
It doesn't like to be told what to do.
No. See, I think that's what I like about the flavor of this. It's like, it is apart from witches. Like, it's not just like, oh, I'm magic, so I can do whatever, whenever. It's like, oh, I have to interact with this thing that like is outside of me, but like connected to me. You know what I mean?
Has a mind of its own too.
Yeah.
It's got its own goals.
Yeah, I kind of liked that. It's like you need to tell it very specifically what you want, how you want it.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's just teaching good communication skills. Do you think all witches are just like very well adjusted?
Yeah, well, no. They're all orphans.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
I don't know. And they have to live in, it seems like Mika's life is pretty,
That's true.
It's a lot of sadness.
Sad. Yeah.
It sounds whimsical though, this whole magic part. And finally, my last chapter ends with the two girls explaining to Mika that they are very happy she likes her room.
Yeah.
And that they thought she would like it because it was basically open to the outdoors.
Yeah.
With like these grand, large areas, which Mika reflects is probably a witchy thing.
Yeah.
Because when she thinks about all the other witches she knows, they're all kind of all like this. They like
Yeah.
nature, they like the outdoors. So magic is natural and witches are one with the outdoor.
Yes.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
They're like granola lady. Witches are granola people.
I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It definitely seems like a natural, supernatural force.
Yes.
You know, in the sense that supernatural here is just extra natural.
Yes. Perfect.
Crunchy peanut butter.
And that's the beginning.
Yes. So the second section of this book is chapters 6 through 10. We're going to start still in the midst of move-in day. So
Yes.
we've not moved on yet with a tour of the girls give Mika a tour of Lillian's like sad, sterile bedroom and her very chaotic office. So it's like kind of a tale of two sides. It seems of Lillian's personality.
Yeah.
And then they end up rehoming Mika's greenhouse and pond into the back garden. And I love the banter while this is happening between Ken and Mika. We're getting to know Ken a little bit better.
Ken seems chill.
Yes. And I just love that he's like, well, Ian is going to be insufferable now that you're here, now that like he was right about you. So like, thanks a lot. And I just like their dynamic already is so like warm and playful, like familiar, I think kind of right off the bat. Ken just seems very welcoming and like open.
He's like, that's my smug husband.
Yeah.
I think also it cuts in like Ian is like outside, like with his hand under the pond. Trying to,
He's just like goofing around with magic.
Yeah.
I love Ian, love Ken. So Mika and the younger girls go back upstairs to unpack books and potion supplies, plants, and as she unfurls like her witchy knife roll, kind of essentially
her Dexter tool bag.
yes, exactly. It's stuffed though with like tiny vials of her spell components, and she starts teaching Rosetta and Altamira about how you tie spells to the energy of physical living things. So I think this is where we get this like you have to be one with nature, because a lot of what's going to power your spells comes from the earth, you know?
So Mercury in retrograde is going to definitely be a part of like the witch world.
Yes.
Here.
Well, famously, happy solstice, Dane. Yes. And so I like that kind of before Mika's explaining this, we saw her get physical relief when she stopped levitating the pond and greenhouse. She was like, ooh, I was kind of tired. She like stretches out her shoulders. So I think we're getting a little bit of an idea about the cost of this magic system. Like it does sap your energy and your physical strength. And on that topic, we also get the idea that Lillian must be exceptionally powerful because the wards around Nowhere House are like stronger than almost anything Mika's ever seen.
Yeah.
And though Lillian has tied them to some of the oldest trees in the surrounding woods, like it still shouldn't.
Magic too.
Yes, yeah. So it's drawing energy from the living things around Nowhere House. But even with all of that, Lillian has to be very powerful to only have to reset them once a year. It's like any other witch would have to live at Nowhere House to keep up what Lillian's doing from afar, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, Lillian is a badass, apparently.
Yes, exactly. And so then they head down to lunch. Terracotta finally makes her appearance.
You gotta make an entrance.
With Mika in the story. She's dressed up like in her Sunday best and just openly plotting Mika's like surprisingly peaceful demise. She's like, well, I'll kill you in your sleep. I'm not crazy. And Mika, to her credit, wholly unfazed by this.
Yes.
And Jamie actually does try to keep, at least in this interaction, this tiny murderer in check.
Yeah.
But his own like irritation at Mika's intrusion can't help, I think, but bubble up. And he just immediately shoots down a plan for Mika to take the girls and Cersei for just an afternoon beach stroll. So even though he starts trying to be healthy in his approach to Mika, like he flips kind of on a dime and he's like, no, you can't take the girls anywhere by yourself.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Yeah. But instead, Mika is able to accept Ken's ultra gracious invitation to tea at his and Ian's cottage. And
Heck yeah.
Yes, Ken might be my favorite character so far, just because he's like, oh, let me fix this social situation real quick and just, again, be warm, inviting.
You can hang out with us, I guess.
You can come hang out with us. We'll have tea. So really quickly before she goes to tea, Mika takes the opportunity to like fuck around in her potion kit a little bit.
Yeah.
And I thought that the description of her potion making and how like in love with witchcraft she was really well done, because I guess it hit home, even though, loath as I am to admit, I'm not actually a witch. Womp womp.
Oh, no.
But I could still relate to this like feeling Mika described of like trusting your instincts with an ingredient and tinkering around until you get the recipe right, until you're like respecting what that ingredient has to offer you.
Yeah.
Like in my wildest dreams, my like delusions of grandeur, that's how I feel a little bit when I'm like cooking. I love to cook. And so I'm like, oh, I can kind of relate to that. I love that that's what she's getting from this.
It is very nice. And it comes through this entire book that she loves it.
Yes.
She loves being a witch.
Yes. It's like something that sets her apart has obviously caused her pain in her life. And I think she is very reflective about what it's also brought her and how she wouldn't really give it up for solving any of the problems it's caused her.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense.
But after she has actual liquid tea with Ian and Ken, Mika heads back to the main house with Lucy, trying to get the housekeeper to spill the metaphorical tea on Jamie. She's like, what is that guy's deal? Which I love. Lucy lets on that although Jamie was a pretty young man when Lillian brought the girls to Nowhere House, he took charge of them in a way that Lucy and Ken couldn't really, because Lillian can't quite like shake this. It gave me like a Downton Abbey vibe. She still treats Lucy and Ken like the help, but Jamie, for
that's
whatever
right.
reason, she treats as like family.
Gotcha.
So I think Jamie is a little more protective of the girls. He feels a little more paternal, responsible for them, just because Lillian prevented Lucy and Ken and Ian from stepping in that way, which I'm like, ooh, I don't like Lillian, I think. She seems kind of like a dick at this point in the narrative.
But isn't this also just like old British people? Is that the vibe?
I think that is the vibe. I think that's why it gives me, I'm like, okay, this kind of makes me think of Downton Abbey. It's this big like manor. We're getting a little like upstairs, downstairs situation. Oh, it's like it's a show.
This is my first foray to cozy London, okay?
It's just a show about like old-timey British aristocracy, and so you get like the landed gentry and their like service staff, and it's like just the stories of all of those people and how they relate. So that's why I'm like, it feels like two separate worlds, you know?
Okay. Doesn't
in a lot of
she
ways.
drug these people, Mika, to
What
get
do you
all
mean?
this information? Doesn't she use like magic tea?
Did she bring her tea over to Ian and Ken? She did. I don't think that's what the tea was for.
Okay.
It wasn't loose lips sink ships tea, Dane.
I kind of feel like it was.
Maybe it was just lucky tea or like rheumatism tea, because they're all a little past their prime. And it's cold in England.
Yeah. They're all just achy.
Yeah, exactly. So with their magic school set to start the next morning, Mika hears some rustling below her balcony as she's falling asleep that night. And it's got to be hot, angry Jamie, who apparently is out in the night, adorably rescuing one of the girls' stuffies that she left outside. He's like, I promised her I'd find it by the morning. And I'm like, this fucking guy.
Yeah, that's pretty lovely.
Yes.
I would have let that stuffy stay out there. I'd be like, oh man, Fluffy's gone.
Big same. I'd be like, we will get you a new one. But Mika, though, is appropriately charmed by this, as anybody would be. Even like...
Wait, hold on. Is this just a ploy to impress the new teacher? He's like, oh, me? I'm just out here looking for one of the stuffies.
I wouldn't say I'm a hero, but no, because she notably like notices that he has no tact or like social grace, but she even kind of likes him for that. She's like, whatever, he's straightforward. And even though he doesn't seem to be at all influenced by her cheerfulness, they do agree to some sort of truce in this nighttime interaction in which Mika understands why Jamie doesn't trust her as a newcomer. So I'm like, good for you. You're just like accepting, insightful. But she thinks as long as Jamie keeps that shit to himself so that the girls trust her enough to learn from her, they're going to be okay.
Well, I kind of get the vibe that we're seeing Mika in action without much like focus on this, agree with the fact that she's an outsider.
Yes.
Like she's so used to people just being like, you're on the outside. We're already seeing kind of that play out where Mika's like, no, I get it. I'm not one of you guys.
Yeah.
So like, as long as I can do my job, I'll be on the outside because that's where I belong.
Yeah.
It's kind of already coming into play.
I think so. I think that's a good point. I think to me too, what I read from it is like her approach to people generally is like, if I can understand your motivations and they seem like above board, I'm not going to begrudge you. If you treat me a little bit like shit, because at least like you're nice and you mean well. I think that
because of
that
course
is really
you treat me like shit.
Yes, I think that's very important to her.
Yeah.
So with this shaky new alliance between Mika and Jamie, magic school starts the next morning, and Mika's somewhat surprised to be under Jamie's direct supervision as she starts lessons. And I thought like the uncomfortable opening of the lesson felt very relatable to me, because like, oh shit, I don't know how to teach at all. Here we go. And I'm like, oh, I can relate to that. And I only ever taught like dance to little kids when I was like a teen, an older teen. Yeah. And I was wondering how that read to you. You are so much more experienced with that, middle school history teacher Dane.
Yeah.
How did lessons feel to you?
It's funny. First off, having like a principal or a dean or another teacher or even a parent, sitting in on your class is always like, okay, here we go. Because it's always the worst class too. You could have a perfect 3 months and then a teacher walks in and then you're just like, well, this is not what it's like.
It's not always chaotic.
Yeah. No, I thought, honestly, she nails teaching. Because like, okay, the hardest part about teaching is people her age too. I taught a little bit older, like 11 and 12-year-olds.
Yes.
But the hardest thing about teaching is like getting across an objective.
Yeah.
Like what you're going to teach is really important, but then also connecting it to a rationale that really resonates with your students.
Yeah.
Because if you can do what you're like, here's what we're going for. Here's why you should care. And you can get both those things to work. Pretty much everything else kind of works. It doesn't really matter what that is. I know that sounds
provide some like justification. Kids will hop on board and will solve a lot lot of problems just by virtue of them being...
They're on board to learn with you.
Yes.
Yeah. She also seamlessly like leads when there's questions in a way that isn't dismissive. I mean, sometimes when you're talking with kids, and I had a lot of trouble. I have a trouble with this with adults. Sometimes you can correct in a way that seems dismissive to people, even if you don't mean to, even if you're just trying to be brief or direct. Sometimes that she seems light and airy. And then she does the thing that I think is the ultimate pinnacle, is she is completely emotionally stable.
Yes.
So like emotional constancy is like the absolute secret to like elementary and middle school, even high school, I think.
Yeah.
That like if you're emotionally constant, everything comes out the same. That's very safe and like easy to learn. So she nails like all the she just like is like in perfect cozy fantasy fashion. The fantasy here is she's just a fantastic teacher, just right off the bat.
Well, I think that's like so much of her personality is to be, maybe it's kind of what I'm talking about. Like even with the kids, she's like, they don't mean me any harm. Like I'm totally fine. I think she just seems very like zen as a person. And even though there are some like horrors and traumas in her past,
there's horrors
like,
in the past?
horrors of wars. But like, insofar as those things exist for her, like she also has dealt with them at least to a degree that allows her to have this like emotional but positive, stable, zen outlook on the world.
Yes. She is not. Some people get very offended by children.
Yeah.
Because of what you're saying.
Yes. The meanest things anyone's ever said to me have been said to me by a child.
Oh, I worked with people, like when I watched people, because I did a master's program and then we all went and became teachers. I watched people just come into rooms crying. Just being like, can you believe what this 12-year-old said? I'm like, yeah, he's 12. Of course he said that.
He knew you'd react like this. That's why he did it.
Why would you let a 12-year-old bother you? Yeah. I think there's definitely... This is amazing.
It's what made me think like she must be very brave to start the lesson out by just opening the floor for questions for a bunch of kids. I'm like, damn, knowing some of the wild shit that kids say and just like awkward stuff, not even mean. I'm just like, you either, Mika, have balls of steel or do not know many children.
Well, here's the thing. I also think that like she talks to them like adults and she opens up in a way that is honest. I think kids can smell... Like, kids maybe don't know why, or maybe can't consciously pinpoint that you're, like, full of shit, or that, like, you're being different.
Yes.
But most kids around a certain age, they're like, that sounds wrong. And I think they react to that. I think being authentic in a way that is constant and, like, starting mutual respect.
Yeah.
Like, man, I'm just listing more things she does well here. It really is good. I liked reading it because I was like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah, I thought was a super good teacher. Maybe it also is just a function of not being very close to people her whole life. It's like she has this, I'm apart from you, but like feel general goodwill towards you. Like that's kind of her take on everybody all the time. Yeah. And it makes perfect sense for this. She ends up talking like authentically in that vulnerable way about so much too. Like in this whole interaction, she talks about protecting the girls from magical outbursts, which we didn't know was a thing. Like the energy can just get out of hand. She talks about the highly siloed like society under Primrose's iron fist. Like she just opens up to them about what the whole structure of witches is like.
Did that surprise you? It surprised me. She just like started with that.
Outed them. Yeah. I don't think so, because I think for her, she's like, I would have loved to know what the deal was when I was their age. So I think she's just giving them something she could not have ever had.
That's so cool.
Yes. And I think it ends up with her being very vulnerable, talking to them about her own lonely childhood. So she kind of explains even to them like why she feels like this and why she's happy to be teaching them and why she's happy for them just to have each other. It's so nice.
It's very nice.
But before things can turn into too much of a therapy session in the book, not here, it's already, we're already way past that far.
I was like,
no.
I mean, can you imagine all the things we cut out that the listener isn't hearing?
I know. But yes, before on screen things turn into too much of a therapy session, Mika takes a page out of the time-honored Magic School 101 tome of our beloved Brahm from Inheritance Cycle, and she asks the girls to focus their first spell work on floating small pebbles in the air from their palms. And I'm like, yes, here's a rock. floated. I loved it. None of the three is successful right away, but Mika's still impressed by their attempt. She's like, your focus is incredible, and she gives them just a beautiful pep talk about the nature of witches. And like,
in the most meta way, do you think Mika was reading Aragon before she came into this?
Yes, because I think she does like to interact with the way magic's portrayed in pop culture. So like, yes, in universe, this podcast too is about Aragon.
Yeah. It's a Russian doll of Aragon.
Yes, it always comes back. It's Aragon's all the way down. But meanwhile, while all of this is going on with Mika and the girls, and with Jamie like lurking outside, Ian, Ken, and Lucy are lurking from inside. And Ian seemingly is struck by the same notion I have as a reader, that Jamie and Mika should totally hook up. And Ken and Lucy are horrified by this, which I thought was so funny, because apparently Ian, not just for like obvious reasons that like nobody wants to be match made, but Ian also, on top of that, has a sordid checkered history of meddling in Jamie's love life. And just these three together, their dynamic is so fun.
I got this. I love Ian in this book the entire way through, all the way to the end. So this is not a critique on that, but I had the feeling in this section that I was like, Ian is fun in this book, but if I was a character in this world, I think Ian would annoy
He would be so much
the shit out of me.
There were times when I'm like, oh, Ian's a lot, but I think by virtue of having like Ken and Lucy and Jamie to temper all that impulse, it's like that's what makes the unit cohesive. You kind of need an Ian.
You need a wild card.
A little bit. But I'm kind of rooting for Ian.
Yeah.
In his objective and in life. I just love him. But Ken is not. So I'm a little sad to be at odds with Ken.
And in that I respect Ken.
Yes. But we actually get to spend the next chapter with Ian, Cupid's target himself. We're with Jamie in the library, just like running through the mental checklist of things that are irritating him, which I'm like, I relate so hard.
I must say, I really identify with Jamie.
Yes, Mika obviously is the chief among these irritating concerns. He's clearly supposed to come off, I think, as this like huge grump with a heart of gold, which is evidenced by like he has got a soft spot for Cersei. I think that all of this is building that characterization.
Yeah.
But I like, too, that the whole chapter seems laced with like qualms of his that I find very reasonable. It's not like, oh, he's just grumpy for no reason.
Yeah.
Like I too would be very irritated by some of this shit.
Yeah, no, none of it is weird. Like none of it's weird or over the top. You're just like, yeah, that's all. I think the only thing that's strange about it, or maybe negative, is that he is just ruminating on all of the things he doesn't like. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's just feeding into his neuroses in his lonely library.
Which I know nothing about. I would never do that.
Oh,
in my dungeon for Dungeons and Dragons. I've never just sit down here and ruminate.
No, the page I think I would like to take out of Jamie's book on this account is that he seems very self-aware about like things that are actually stressing him out versus what he's attributing to Mika. And you know what I mean? Like, he's like, okay, it's not all her fault. I just am stressed because of the girls, because of Edward, because of this. Like, Mika just is opposite of me in personality, you know?
Well, I also was catching in this, he can't stop thinking about her.
Oh, yeah.
He's already just
obsessed
with her.
Obsessed. I love it.
Yeah.
And I do like that even in this.
Sorry, I know I'm interrupting you again, but like, is this normal in these like romance type books? I'm not a big romance guy. Is it already just love at first sight normally, where they're like, I can't stop thinking about you?
I cannot speak with any authority, so I hesitate. I've gotten into like literally maybe 2 or 3 more romance focused series.
Okay.
So maybe.
Okay.
I think it runs the gamut, though, would be my guess. Like any genre, there are different iterations of this. So, but I think it is easiest to like set it up from the beginning that they're like, oh, we're irritating each other, but like something's there, and I can't really stop thinking about it.
We're irritating each other because we want to take each other's clothes off.
Yes, exactly. Cool. So I think it's just a way to build the vibe, make it clear, like know where you're going. I think maybe that's part of cozy fantasy in general. It's like, I know what I'm getting.
Solicitor is coming on
I feel
26th.
Safe. I feel safe in this narrative. I feel like I'm going to be taken care of and have a nice time. And
I'm getting paid for 12 weeks. I have signed the contract. Everything is very...
Exactly. Okay. Yes. I think like Jamie's obviously a prickly dude in this book, but in a way that I can relate to. And I don't even have 3 children and a huge secret to keep. So like, I think the way he's portrayed and the way he's ruminating on like this intrusion in his life and all the upheaval, like I just think it tracks perfectly for like what this book is and what it's trying to do. I think it's very successful.
Perfect.
So Mika ends up coming into the library while he's thinking about this because romance book. They have an interaction that I think Ian would be thrilled about. She's like poking around the library. By the time she goes, it's Jamie who's like, I'm feeling a little optimistic and like maybe the world's going to be better to the girls than it was to Mika. And he's like, what is happening to me? Who am I?
Why do I feel these good feelings?
Yes, and I love this journey for him. But the last chapter of my section has us back with Mika and her POV. She's with Rosetta and Altamira in potions lessons. And if a vibe exists that's the antithesis of Snape's dungeon, this would be it. It's this attic, like even just geographically, we're opposite ends of the spectrum.
It's bright and not dark.
Yes, and everybody is just happy and kind.
They want to be there.
Yes. The girls are keeping up still. They're just like steady stream of probing invasive questions. On Terracotta's part, she's keeping up her steady stream of death threats. And Mika gets into, in this scene, a discussion of her non-existent family, how she doesn't have anybody.
Yeah.
She's thinking about how much all 3 girls will run up against like societal expectations of members of so many like marginalized groups in a lot of ways, which is most obviously, but also immigrants to England and women of color. And Mika's just thinking through like how she's sad that she won't be able to guide all 3 girls through every curveball the world throws at them. All of their identities are different.
Right.
And I think in this, she resolves to stick to her lane and help the girls with the things she's there to help them with, give them the magical guidance and connection she wanted so badly in her own childhood. She's like, that is what I can do. I can be really successful at that. And I think this part really stuck with me because race overtly just in itself is not necessarily a huge centerpiece of this story, but I really like the way Sangu Mandanna addresses it here. Like it's one piece of this whole puzzle that makes up these characters, their connections to each other. It's like, it's obviously a factor, but for Mika, her priorities or like what she's able to give and able to do that's not central. That's not the centerpiece of it. And she's going to try to do the things she can and help in the best way she knows how.
But that seems to me to be a really wise thing for any mentor to realize.
Yeah.
Like, or partner or friend.
Yeah.
Like you can't be everything to everyone, but you can probably help them with something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I was thinking too, I think maybe you mentioned this when I was like, that's really, I feel like we don't always get this in a book. It either feels heavy-handed, you know, when we're bringing it up, or it's ignored entirely in a way that's problematic too. And so I feel like there's so many ways to like.
I didn't know if this was British or not.
Yes, I think it's funny that we're so like fixated on this book being international, and this is one way that it feels like
it feels non-American in this way. This feels like a non-American way to cover this topic.
Yes,
but I like this way.
Yes,
in this book,
I was like in a positive way.
In a positive way.
Like if this book had been written in America, I think we would be sitting here talking about how it went wrong.
Right. And yes, and I think like because it doesn't really make it the centerpiece of the story, but it is about that.
Yeah.
There's a lot more, you sit with it a lot more actually easier. And it's not confrontational or it's not trying to, it does seem to me that this is different. There's something about this that's different. And I don't know if it's British. It just might be this author's
point of view.
And either way, I really enjoy it.
I do too. I think it resonated with me specifically.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to bring it up because
I called Jacqui. I was like, hey, I have a question.
Are you thinking about? And I was like, yes, I love it in this book.
Yeah.
Like just the whole way they're addressing, you know, marginalization, being an outsider.
Yes.
You know, having strikes against you in a larger society. You're just like, damn, this is good for you, Sangu. 10 out of 10. But kind of in the vein of this subject, in the week that Mika's been at Nowhere House, she seems to really be seeing and understanding the 3 girls. I think that's where this comes from. She's like, there's so much about them that I connect to, and there are ways that I'm never going to understand parts of them. You know, she can see both. And she can see that Terracotta's chief concern is to protect her family unit, while Rosetta has a hesitant, like shy longing to explore the outside world. So I think she's really insightful as well as a teacher and mentor, which again is helping this whole thing just go so well right off the bat.
Everyone's very healthy.
Yes. I mean, even in the ways that like Terracotta is trying to do a murder.
Yeah.
But
even that's kind of healthy.
Yes, she like loves her family. She loves her people so hard.
Yes.
So Mika, I think to try to help with Rosetta is struggling with, since she's, I think maybe because she's a little older and Mika's like, we do need to get her outside in the world, maybe socialized a little bit. She proposes taking her to a bookshop in the nearest small city. Mm-hmm. Jamie obviously refuses out of hand, predictably. He's like, no. But after some hearty debate and a vote amongst all the adults at the table, I love that we live in a democracy at Nowhere House.
It's a Nowhere House democracy. I love it.
Jamie ends up having a change of heart in the vote. He votes no and then gets a second vote because
it's Jamie.
It's not a fair democracy, but whatever.
No, I think he gets 2 votes.
Yes, he gets
if
2
it's
votes.
a tie, right?
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah, so he uses his second vote to change his vote and agree to let Mika take Rosetta. And then he, truly shocking to me, agrees to go along by himself. I do remember reading this. I was like, what? Why would he go? But Ian and I cannot wait to see this.
Well, you and Ian don't have to wait long because we start this next chapter with the smell of pine needles,
yes.
which I guess is the musk from Jamie.
That's his natural scent. I will say in anything I've read that even starts to lean romantic. I mean, this comes up in Wheel of Time in the ways that book is romantic. The smell of a person, like, taking extra notice of like somebody's natural scent is a hallmark, I think, of romance writing.
Well, apparently this man smells like a pine tree.
Yes.
And we even get like a focus on his strong arms and his bare skin and his strong chest. This book made me laugh out loud. I was like, oh my God.
Yes, well, because it's like, obviously they've already met, but it's kind of another little like meet cute.
Yeah, well, she grabs him and smells him.
Yes, well, she like runs into him and then is like, oh, let me sniff hard at you. And you're just like, girl, what are you doing?
Yeah, and there's this weird conversation. Well, like it just is weird. This whole chapter was like, I was like, what is going on?
Well, because I like that she, in the writing, like on the page,
she loses herself in the nature of
any smell. It's like this is kind of a thing she does, and it's why she's a little bit of an outcast.
I feel like Mika's just making an excuse for her being she's just being weird. But I do get it.
She is being weird, but obviously she's being weird. I think though it's something we haven't touched on yet, but she thinks a lot about how hard she tries to act counterintuitively. Like she does a lot of contrary action because she knows she's a fucking weirdo. She thinks about it a lot. So I think this is one of those
connected to the magic too. It's like almost not her fault.
Yeah, she's like, I've spent my whole life learning how to just like be a normal person and get by and do like the socially normal thing. And this is one way where like, because when you don't, it is a problem. You're a little freak.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that run-in is right before they go on their bookstore journey. There's a weird conversation on the car ride about spells that can change your appearance, and the last time Mika got laid. Those are it's a wild one. Cool. Frankly weird to me. Am I too American? Am I a prude? Because I was just like, if I was I'm working for someone, I'm teaching a child. That child's in the car.
Yes.
I wish someone that I'm mildly attracted to. Someone asked me,
a grandpa,
like an
82-year-old man,
asks me when the last time I got laid was. I feel like I'd be like, it's none of your business.
Yeah, me personally, absolutely not answering that question.
Okay.
In this scene, I also was uncomfortable. I was like, what are we all doing? And then I was like, there is a certain philosophy that's like, we should be open about sex around kids.
Yeah. And like America's supposed to be more puritanical and like more like conservative in this way. Like they don't show blood, but they show like nudity, right? In Europe.
Yeah.
I hate to keep drawing this to Europe, but I'm like, is this just a point of view thing where I'm like, well, that's not appropriate.
Yeah. I had my gut reaction is, oh, that's not appropriate. And then I'm like, well, I guess there are people who feel like this is a healthier approach. I don't know where I fall on that spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably right, to be frank. But
But it feels weird.
Yeah. We learned that Jamie was taken in by Lillian when he was 16 and running from his family.
Running from the law.
Yeah. And we don't get really much more than that. It's pretty vague. Lillian doesn't seem to be that bad in Jamie's recollection, which I like that we get his opinion of her. It does mean, though, that he's lived with Ken, Lucy, and Ian for 20 years.
That's right.
So Nowhere House is his actual home.
Yes.
And since Ian and the gang made him go back to school and later to Cambridge, I guess they're kind of like pseudo-parental, like uncles and aunts and all of that to him.
I mean, I think Ken and Ian especially feel very...
Again, Lucy's on the outside.
But maybe just because they're a couple and they're like, he's our baby boy.
Yes. And then we also learned something about Lucy. Not to leave her out.
No.
She had a violent husband.
Yes.
And she eventually moved to Nowhere Home to escape him.
Yeah, she was already working there. Yeah. And then when her marriage started getting...
Lillian was like, come
to
on
be a problem. Yeah, Lillian took her in.
So Lillian does take in lots of people.
Yes, I'm tempering a little on Lillian, I think, through this mid section, but
she doesn't seem that bad. She seems complicated.
Yes,
which is good.
Yeah.
Then we get this nice, like nice versus kind arithmetic that I'm interested to talk to you about.
Yes.
Basically, Mika explains that nice people are all good manners and being polite, essentially.
Yeah.
And things that we do that are nice in public.
Yeah.
And kindness, on the other hand, is the things that people do that are nice when no one is looking.
Yes.
So she explains that she would much prefer someone who is kind but not nice than someone who is nice but not kind. What do you think about that, Jax? Do you think this is true?
I feel like there's a part of this that, feels very true to me, feels like something I've observed in people. Like, I think there's a lot of, in America, this like East Coast, West Coast thing that revolves a little bit around this. It's like people in New York will flip you off and scream at you, but they also will like help you out of the gutter, like covered in snow and like dry you off and feed you,
never been my experience of East Coasties, but you do hear that.
I think that's the theory where like people in California, which I do feel is true to a certain extent.
Yeah, we're both from California, by the way. We both live there. You still live there. I lived there for 23 years. Yeah.
Yes, it's like I think people in California, the reputation or the idea is that, you're very surface level, like everything's happy, everything's good, we're all friendly. Yeah. But nobody really gives a shit about each other. Everybody's just like kind of in their own world. And I'm like, not no.
It's not no.
It's not no.
I mean, I worked in LA for a while. Kevin, you worked in LA. There's a bit of that.
Yes, definitely LA, I think, is probably the pinnacle of that. And I think for me, there are parts about that kind of ethos I like about California because I'm like, nobody's really in your business. Nobody is like caring what you do or judging what you do. It's just like, I hope you're well.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. And, you're not well? Can't hang out? Goodbye.
Yeah. I feel like it's the clearest example is like if you break down on the side of the road in California, it's very rare I see someone stopped helping someone else on the side of the freeway.
Yeah.
I think the idea is, without having lived there or knowing necessarily that this is true, on the East Coast, like people are always going to stop and help you out and like see car trouble as a big catastrophe. Maybe it's just because we have so many more cars and so much more car trouble in California. We're like, they'll figure it out.
Well, yeah, I also think weather's a factor.
Yeah.
If a blizzard's rolling in, that person might die.
Yeah, that
you know
makes
what
sense.
I mean? But my anti-East Coast was really coming through in this conversation.
They're not nice. It's just the weather.
It's all propaganda. No, I do think this is true. I think it might be a little reductive or simple, but I do think this is generally true.
Yeah. I think there's a part of me that's like, anytime we're trying to say there's two categories of people, or like, even like your Myers-Briggs type, there's 16 types of people. I'm like, that's not enough types of people.
Yes.
But I think there's some validity in like trying to say, here are ways broadly people can be different.
Yes. I like this.
Yeah.
Anyway, we get to this little town of Norwich, which
Yes.
I'd highly recommend a Google image search of this cute, very English-looking town.
That's a part of your podcast research? You're like, what does this place look like?
I just kept it super cozy.
Is it?
It's lovely, like small little, think like canal kind of, like rivers and creeks with like small little colored, like green, blue houses, cottages with like
cute.
small, like, cobbled stoned walkways. It's gorgeous.
I think the podcast needs to send us to Norwich for research.
Yes. We're going to Norwich. Come on,
Pack it up, Kevin.
And we get a revelation. Ian's mother was a witch.
Okay.
Which is why he can see magic.
Yeah.
And I guess not everyone can.
Yes.
Which is very cool.
Yeah.
His story is so nice, and his love for his mom is very clear here. He is feeling so good that he is ending the trial period for Mika's employment.
Oh.
And she
was on probation.
Yeah, she's officially on the family to vote. This
cute.
book
So
gets
cute.
me every time. They enter the bookstore, and you know what it reminded me of, Jax? Do you remember the Frugal Frigate in our hometown?
Yes.
I remember it always feeling cozy. It had 3 stories, and then all those like basement rooms that slowly went down.
It is exactly what I pictured when I read this.
Did
I was
you?
like, oh, children's bookstore, the Frugal Frigate.
It's a Frugal Frigate. Yeah. You can Google that. It's in Redlands.
It's a very cute place.
Anyway, people can Google that and be like, not
What?
at all. That's not what it all looks like.
It's cute and they're kind people.
Yes. Anyway, it's a cozy bookstore. Needless to say, this is a cozy bookstore. But Jamie steps out, and it quickly goes to shit as soon as he leaves.
Best laid plans.
Yeah. Rosetta starts talking to 2 little boys in the bookstore. It's so cute. She's having fun. And it seems Ian, for some reason, like almost immediately after that, needs Mika to go get Jamie, who's also just left.
Ian's got plans. You seem confused, but it's like Ian has ulterior motives.
I read this twice because I was like, what is happening in this section? For some reason, Ian needs Jamie. Now, mind you, we don't know where Jamie is.
No, he just left.
And it seems like he's only been gone for like a few minutes. So whatever he's doing, presumably, he hasn't finished. I don't know. But then Mika's like, shouldn't I stay? And he's like, no, I got it. And so she leaves the uncontrolled witch child with the 80-year-old actor. And we know shit's about to go down. I'm like, well, okay, bad things are about to happen.
It immediately made sense to me why Ken and Lucy are like, Ian, don't you fucking dare. It's like, oh yeah, he's a mess.
He's an absolute
He's a problem. He is going to make everything a problem.
But in the most magical thing yet in this book, just pure luck, Mika runs right into Jamie.
Maybe she had a cup of tea that morning.
There it is. He went to see a solicitor for some mysterious reason. Yeah, lots of more solicitors than you'd think. They've come up a lot.
Yes.
Apparently, Jamie has to ask about his dad who passed away over 20 years ago, and I immediately call bullshit.
Yeah.
Something's most fishy. I think probate can take like a really long probate, like 3 to 5 years, but over 20 years? That's really weird.
That can't be it. It's so funny. When I read this, I was like, I guess we're just weirdly hinting at his checkered past, like his rough childhood we don't know a lot about, but okay.
I was like, this isn't true.
Yeah.
Anyway, the topic changes to the wards around Nowhere House. Also, he changes the topic really quick.
Yeah.
And if Mika can place wards, and we learn that she cannot because she's not as powerful as Lillian in magic. And interestingly, it seems like magic is personal maybe here, like we get specialties. Is this a personal power 4th wing situation we have?
I think maybe it seems a little bit like you have a special signet ability, like you are better at this than all the other things.
Is Mika a griffin rider or is she a dragon rider?
She's a dragon rider.
For sure.
Dane.
Of course she is.
She can use
I would
more
have said
than
the
just
same
small
thing.
magics. But yes, I think Mika thinks I could do the wards. They just are going to suck. Technically, I'm capable of it, but like...
You'd have to keep doing them over
yes, it is
and
not
over.
going to function in your lives the way it does right now.
Yeah.
So I like that she's like, yes, I know how in theory, but in practice, there's a lot of variation among the witch community.
Well, that actually leads to a thought that I didn't think about until just now. Also, like, in theory, you probably know how to do everything in magic. Like, in theory, you're like, I guess... In theory, I could do something because it's just those principles.
Yeah.
It would just figuring out how it would work.
Yes.
And
exactly.
I don't do this, and that's really powerful, right?
Yes.
Kind of an interesting
and maybe
system.
high risk, high reward. Like if it goes wrong because I'm fucking around with something that is very powerful, we might end up with a bigger problem on our hands than it's worth to try. I also like the idea, that just gave me the thought that like if you do have some specific focus in your power or an area you're stronger than another area, it's like our favorite character from Wheel of Time, like our favorite magic user in the Aragon series, where you take the one thing you're very good at and make the magic system work around that to serve your purpose. So you could get like tricksy with it. You could get very creative.
Yes, it does.
And
seem
that would
that
be
way.
fun. I would like that.
Yeah. And even I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but we even kind of get this with Mika. She's very like potions oriented.
Yes.
So she uses that for everything.
Yes.
Right? Well, regardless, Jamie and Mika get back to the bookstore where Rosetta and Ian are outside with a bunch of rich books.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Essentially, a small cyclone tore up all the books when the two boys disagree with Rosetta on a character in a book, which...
Yeah.
I feel you, Rosetta. I can get heated at book club talk too. Apparently, you're in my private book club. You know
I'm
that's
like,
true.
Yes, this is you here. If you had magic powers, there'd be a lot
cyclones.
of torn books.
Apparently, Ian smoothed it over and paid for the
Yes,
ripped books.
yes.
Seems like the little boys didn't notice really either.
No, they were just like, oh,
they were
okay.
also really upset about the book argument.
Yeah.
So Jamie didn't seem to care
No.
because no one was hurt or it was upset.
Yeah,
He
it's
also,
a little no harm, no foul. Like,
Yeah.
I was glad because I was like, oh, this could get ugly.
He's about to get fired.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, time goes by. They go back home, and time goes by at Nowhere House, and Mika makes the tea, gardens with Ken.
Training montage.
Yeah, totally. But like in the most lovely.
Cozy
It sounds like
montage.
vacation. It
Yeah.
sounds like vacation.
Yes.
Yeah. She naps, helps Ian with beehives, and generally seems to be having the most lovely time.
That's correct.
It sounds amazing. And Mika feels happy and at peace and comes to realize that she's made herself small by hiding who she is to everyone. And I would venture by not getting close to people and by always moving.
Yes, she's
The
like, I've
implication.
shrunk my imprint on the world by the way I've been living my life. And like,
I've been living small.
Yeah, she's starting to see it could be different. You're just totally right. It's like vacation. It's like I would sign right the fuck up for this retreat.
It is the impetus of something we're going to get to at the very end with Primrose, but this is the explanation for her argument with Primrose.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
from a magical standpoint, we know Mika can gather star shavings and meteor showers, which is lovely. No idea what it means, but it sounds fun. We hear more about this, but I'm not sure how it works. It's cool.
Everything's made up and the spell components don't matter,
Yeah,
Dane.
like we get literally no information about it. It's just needed. So
Well, it's like natural world, things contain their own energies. That's it.
It's about as much as we know about all these oils that are so essential.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
What is so essential
Yeah.
about all these oils? That's correct.
There is a very flirty moment at 2 a.m. where Jamie and Mika
Yeah.
hang out. And I have to say, I share Jamie's prudishness when it comes to an
God.
adult woman wearing nothing but an oversized t-shirt. But maybe it's just because it's sleepwear. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Maybe
know.
I'm an old man.
I think
It seems like scandal to me. I don't know.
down to her knees, scandal.
I don't know. It has I don't know what it is, but I'm just like that. You should be wearing clothes.
Cannot agree. I'm famously though immodest. I don't dress wild, but I just
Yeah.
don't care
Yes.
about things like that.
It's funny because I don't either, but when I read this, I was like, I'm with Jamie on this one. I put some clothes on. Then Mika takes him to her attic, and they drink whiskey in her room while she heals him. He'd like cut his hand or
Yeah.
something. She watches the movement of his throat. Is this a sexy thing? Do you watch the movement of the like Ben's throat?
No, I'm not watching Adam's apples bob around
Yeah.
typically in my everyday life, but I could see how the throat is a sensitive place generally.
I was just
It
like,
comes up.
What is Dylan looking at my throat from time to like? It just doesn't make.
Will not be venturing a guess on that account. I'll just say, yeah, throats are a relevant area.
Is this like vampire girl stuff? Like, is this for the vampire girlies in the audience?
Maybe.
Okay.
Listen, this book is inclusive, Dane.
She's very aware of his presence.
Yes.
And she lets him touch a piece of a star
Yeah.
as they stare at each other's eyes. Jamie leaves after that because he's got to go.
Yeah.
He's like, I got to get out of here. But it's not his last visit. Jamie starts to come at night and help her with her magic. And sometimes they talk while they drink. Sometimes
Yeah.
they just stare at each other's throats. It seems like Mika's into him. She even removes the pet hair with a spell because it annoys him. So from
Yeah.
Nowhere House, it's gone. He seems very moved by this.
Yeah.
They do have a little argument about terracotta. It seems like a week or two later. And I agree with Mika here. Jamie isn't helping by allowing terracotta to know how worried and skeptical he is of Mika.
Yeah.
And this is kind of what people talk about in the situation with teaching these days and
Yeah.
like parents. I think kids who were the hardest sometimes were the ones whose parents were the most untrustworthy or cooperative or disrespectful.
Yeah.
And especially when kids were actually not doing work or trying or really having like social trouble.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it required the aid of the parents. And if they're not into it, I have to say,
nothing's going to happen.
the kids double down.
Yeah.
Right? So I think Mika is right here. She can't win over Terracotta until Jamie shows that it would be acceptable.
Yes.
Or possibly a good thing, just
Yeah.
like the possibility of it being a good thing. But Mika is a great teacher, I think, because even in the way she explains this and holds Jamie to this, really well done. It's firm, but it's not combative.
Yeah.
Which is always a fine line.
Yes. I think this was part of the section of this book where it started like becoming very clear to me, like, oh, these people, many characters in this book have boundaries
Yes.
and just gently enforce them.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, yes, that is... That's the pinnacle. That's what we're going for.
Yeah, in like the healthy way of like, I'm not imposing anything on you,
Yeah.
but I will tell you about the boundary. Anyway, it's very wonderful.
Yes.
Near the end of this section, Terracotta and Mika get into a bit of a power struggle, with Terracotta clearly pushing Mika to find that boundary. This leads to Mika literally being forced to save Terracotta's life when Terracotta was levitating during a windy day.
Yeah.
So,
And
all of
outside,
this
not
just-
like under a roof. That bitch is just to the moon.
But just talking about this book, I'm like, this book is so funny. This is just a funny book. So anyway, I guess because Mika's holding all the magic at bay, that's kind of like a present thing she has to do all the time.
Yeah.
And because Terracotta actually like fights Mika, she's like, no, and they're like tug-of-warring magic.
Yes.
When Mika tries to bring Terracotta down, there's an explosion of magic between the two witches.
Yes.
That's going to overwhelm Terracotta. But Mika ends up taking the blow into her own body,
Yes.
which is wild. It's like fucking metal. There's like lightning and
yes,
pretty wild.
And it's like time slows, and she like draws it towards her
inside of her.
Wild.
She goes out like cold.
Yes.
It's pretty fucked.
Yeah.
Mika's not dead.
Okay.
But she is growing a leaf out of her throat. Hey, more throat stuff. Apparently, a leaf out of your throat obviously means that she's hibernating.
Obviously sexy.
Duh.
Oh, right. No,
Oh,
she's
no.
hibernating. You're right. That thing.
Apparently, she's hibernating to heal herself.
Yes.
Which is like a witch safety feature, I guess. Like,
Yes, it passed the 5-point safety inspection.
it's the undercoating of witches.
Yes, it's like a magical pressure release valve, which
Yeah.
like honestly it does make a lot of sense. It's like, yeah, there should be one of those.
Yeah. So Jamie finally confronts Terracotta. Sorry, I'm just thinking of the leaf coming out of the throat. Jamie finally confronts Terracotta, and I think in a very mature and reasonable way. He even like stops. He's gonna like yell at her, and he like internally is like, "That won't be good." Dude, this guy Jamie's a great dad.
Yes.
Talk about great communication skills. He like takes responsibility for his own part first.
Yes.
It would have been great if he had this realization before Mika was forced to go into hibernation.
That's true.
But
That's
you can't get everything.
No, you cannot be winning them all. Yeah, I do like that. I like that too. I guess I was a little worried when he was like, this is my fault. And I was like, that little girl still did do some crazy shit. And he does still let her have it. Like you are getting, I think that's maybe what's so nice about this book all the way through is that you do get, there's balance. You get both sides of a lot of things. Like,
well, everyone is healthy, but also nuanced.
yes, I guess it's not just for something that is so cozy and so lovely, warm, all these words we keep using like a broken record, like it could very easily just be saccharine. Like he could just be, oh, I'm a martyr. This is all my fault.
Right.
You're my precious, perfect baby
That'd
girl.
be toxic.
No, I think there's a lot of like a dose of realism in this that makes it, that keeps it from being just like, oh, okay, we get it. Everybody's perfect.
When people actually, this is the perfect book to give someone. If you ever tell someone or like, you need to go towards conflict and like, I don't like conflict in my life. This is the perfect book to give them and be like, conflict is good.
Yes.
Because everyone has conflict. Anyway, that's a whole different conversation. When Mika wakes, I'm just going to move right along. She sounds like she has a hangover mixed with like a flu kind of combo. I don't know. But I do know.
Hit by a truck, I think, is in the mix somewhere.
But I knew instantly, the moment I read this moment,
yes,
these two are going to bone.
100%.
It's bound to happen.
Gotta happen.
Jamie is there when she wakes, and they have this flirty moment.
Yes.
And ultimately, Terracotta and Mika make peace right after this flirty moment. So it's a nice
They're
sandwich.
about to flirt, and the girls are like, Mika, you're alive!
Yeah, it's wild. And then Mika again shows she's a badass mentor.
Yeah.
And probably gains Terracotta's trust for life.
Yeah.
By not only accepting the apology, but responding with empathy and understanding and with a slight correction for the future.
Yes.
Just fucking perfect. Everyone is perfect. After a few days, Mika's getting better, but dun dun dun. She gets a text from Primrose to meet with her on the
Not
morrow.
Not Tyler Umbridge.
It's Tyler. Yeah, it's Tyler Umbridge.
Dolores Durden. Something.
Dolores Durden.
Okay.
That's the best. This section ends with Jamie being worried for Mika's safety, and she really doesn't get that he cares for her. It's kind of a heartbreaking a little bit.
Yeah, she's like confused by his...
Like genuinely.
Yes.
She's like, I don't get what his deal is.
Yeah, he is being weird.
Yeah, but I just want to point out the big turning point in this book where everyone's like, no, is that text message from her like pseudo mom.
Yes, from her foster mom.
Yeah.
A wrench in the plans because the solicitor is still on his way, Dane. The solicitor is still imminent.
The stakes in this book are just so different than I'm used to. It's like, who know?
Not everything can be like species going extinct, must save the world.
That's true. This is nice.
Yeah. But that does take us to our next section. We come back to Mika on her way to the dreaded tea with Primrose. And right off the bat, she's having the sneaking suspicion that Jamie might have been right about her not being up to an outing like this so soon after her uncomfortably close to death experience. And I mean, I love a queen who can admit when she may have been wrong. But in this case, it doesn't matter. Mika's already pot committed. She's at a swanky Cambridge hotel. So I guess we are having this tea.
I do love that Primrose wanted a swanky Cambridge hotel.
Well, Mika picked it to be
to
like
peas, right?
Yeah, she's like, this is what she needs.
Yeah, I love
I know her. Yeah, 100%. So Mika armors up with her sunniest smile and orders a delicious sounding spread for afternoon tea, something we tried to pay homage to here on the pod. And she's just going to sit down and chill with her emotionally unavailable absentee adopted mom.
Oh, no.
Yay. Primrose wastes no time getting down to business because she's already certain Mika was behind like the huge surge she felt in power when all of that went down with Terracotta. Part of why Mika felt like she did have to go was like Primrose is going to know. She's going to know something is up.
Yeah.
And I should go try to explain it, headed off at the pass, you know? Her only defense, though, when Primrose brings it up, is to keep her mouth so full of pastries that she won't have to lie convincingly. She's like, oh, I'll just be chomping.
Yeah, isn't it like she counting scones that she's eating them?
I think she has 5 scones with jam and cream. So she's...
Sounds like a lunch for me.
Yeah, fucking good for her. As if I could love her anymore.
Yeah.
But Mika explains this all away when she does finally have to, as like she went to a college reunion because her college is in the area, and she had an emotional outburst after a fight with her ex from college. And Primrose seems to buy this immediately, which just leaves me wanting to know, like, who is this nefarious dude that Primrose is like, oh yeah, he sucked. Yeah.
Also, she's like on board to help or like understand Mika, I will say.
Yeah.
Immediately.
I think so. Mika, though. I
was surprised by that.
Yes, and I think it's really illustrated in the writing by how like surprised Mika seems when Primrose, she does things at this tea, like compliments how good Mika is at potions, and Primrose like makes a frank remark about Mika's sex life, which apparently we're all just talking about.
Also, yes, even that, doesn't she say like pick your penis is better?
Yes, like I've always let you make your own choices, and that includes like what penis you're going to put in your body.
Like, what is up
like,
with these people?
Like repress. So I guess I was like, you know, maybe Mika picked this openness up from this like little old, she's only repressed on the surface, like little old biddy who's her mom. So I'm like, well, maybe makes sense.
Yeah.
But they move on to discussing, like, I think Mika's a little emboldened to ask Primrose some direct questions like she hasn't. So they discuss the curse that makes all witches orphans. Mika also asks Primrose if she knew Ian's mom, which she did. And she was like, oh, I know that lady. Mika doesn't say why she's asking.
Right.
But Primrose was like, oh, knew her. She was great. And I was like, that tracks. Ian also is great.
Is great.
Totally tracks. But Primrose, on the subject of the curse, admits that it was caused by witches trying to protect themselves from some Witchfinder General, which is a badass title.
Okay.
If you're going to have a title,
yeah,
it's a fucking cool title.
It's a pretty cool one.
Yes. So they were trying to protect themselves. Their spell went awry. And now Mika, like at this point, it's just like ratcheting up how shook she is that her foster mom is just giving her this info without like any reservations, it seems.
It's not hidden. It's just offered.
Yes. And I think this is the part of it that felt like Mika's reaction is making it clear that like something's a little out of step with what we know about Primrose, you know? Like she wants so badly to connect with her foster mom, but she's constantly in this tension where she feels like she's being gaslit, like Primrose never answered questions, and now she's acting like she always would have answered questions, and it's not a big deal. But it's like, why are these two things so at odds? Because what we've seen of Primrose does not seem to be like withholding necessarily.
I think it's that change when your parents treat you like an adult. And they like, well, of course I didn't do that. You were a kid.
You were a child.
And I didn't tell you when you were in your 20s because did you see, go back to the penis comment.
Yeah.
You're not really a good decision maker then. But like, well, you're getting pretty old. We're in our 30s now. So like, you know, I'm just treating you like a person.
Yeah.
If anything, it is establishing that Primrose does respect Mika.
I think so, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think too, like anybody, Primrose obviously has a blind spot at the way she's cultivated Mika's perception of her, you know, by doing those things that make sense when you're a child, but doing them in a way that has made Mika fear interacting with Primrose in this way.
Not to give Primrose a
point.
pass. It sounds like Mika's childhood has been horrible. So,
yes.
But it does seem like maybe that's just, like you said,
there's
a
like
blind
something
spot
going on.
There's
here.
something going on.
And I think for her part, I guess to me too, part of this is like Primrose reads just as matter of fact and like direct, kind of cold almost, as Mika has portrayed her up until this point.
Yeah.
You know, so that feels okay, right in line with what I was expecting. But I'm also picking up maybe in some of these, like the openness, the like light little jabs or compliments, like it's almost this brand of affection Primrose has that's a little sly, could almost be playful, like a very dry sense of humor, I guess. It's like very under the surface. But I think for me, I am picking up, especially reading it twice, like putting this together for the podcast. I'm like, oh, I can see where there's an undercurrent of like, she clearly cares about Mika. And Mika, it makes sense to me also why Mika can't see that. You know?
Yes. Well, she has a different relationship with Primrose, right?
Yeah.
Because like I was going to say, I liked Primrose in this interaction. I was like, Primrose sounds totally nice and wonderful. And also, have you ever hung out with someone like Primrose where like they're kind of like the, I guess in like comedy, you'd be like the straight man that doesn't get the joke.
Yeah.
She kind of like, it would be fun to be at a party with Primrose to like bounce off of Primrose's prim and properness.
Yes.
Like there's something fun about her.
And I think it seems like she's in on it maybe.
Yes, like she's kind of in on the joke even. She's like, I know what I'm doing and you know what I'm doing.
I get it. So that's why every like 5 years I'll say the word penis out loud at a tea and like we're going to know that's a fucking funny joke.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, I think that's right. I think this is one of these things that this book is doing so well. One of the things that keeps it from just being like everybody's perfect and they all love each other and everyone gets along and live happily ever after. I think with both of the people at this tea, this is maybe one of the scenes where I feel it the most. Like I'm understanding both sides of each character's take on their relationship with one another. It's like I see what's good about Primrose and I see what has been a problem about Primrose. I see what Mika's been through, but I also see how she at this point is not interacting or like giving Primrose some of the credit or like leaning into the parts of their relationship that could be healthy.
Okay, but do you think this is a function of both of these people, even as they are, even them being on different, let's just call it different sides for right now. Neither one of them is horrifically evil or like offensive.
Yeah.
So it makes it easy to enjoy both of them because while they clearly is a problem here.
Yeah.
And they're, Primrose has clearly done Mika wrong a little bit. You know what I mean? Maybe Mika's done Primrose wrong with her opinion of her. But like it's easy as a reader to read it because you're like, but both of these people are pretty wonderful.
They like mean well.
Yeah, and they both have reasons, it seems like, that make sense.
Yes. But I think that's some of maybe like the realism that is grounding this otherwise like very nice narrative. You know, it's like that is what real people are like by and large. It's like people aren't just evil.
Well, that's what I was getting to. Well, I said evil intentionally because like we do a lot of fantasy. Well, we're doing Aragon and there are some evil people.
Yeah.
Or like, you know what I mean? And there are some factions. There's a lot on the line. There's some cultural differences, you know? So some of those people, even if it's reasonable, it's still like I have a hard time understanding that person.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This seems nicer.
It definitely is nicer.
Yeah.
Yes, it definitely is nicer, but I just think it's well done. I think
Yes.
the author is threading a needle in a lot of ways with this book that keeps it from like veering into territory that I think would be a little more difficult to read.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
love the voice of this narrator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. So after this tea, they part ways. Primrose is apparently assuaged for the time being, but Mika is fucking wrecked.
Yeah.
Like if she was wobbly walking into the hotel, she's on death's door on the way back to her car. Like she can barely stand up. But just as she's contemplating just like napping, passing out for a while in the driver's seat, her door is unceremoniously wrenched open, Dane, by who else but hot Jamie. I loved it. I was also not really expecting this. I was like, ooh, hello.
Oh, were you?
Yes. He and Ken followed Mika to this tea so they'd be on hand in the event her strength gave out, like it is very much doing now. They were like, she looks bad. She is not healthy. She's unwell.
Or to assassinate Primrose if things went wrong.
Yes. So we get a delightfully flirty car ride home with Mika and Jamie.
Oh, this was like turned to 11.
Yes, dude. He gives her his jacket. She won't stop stroking his face. He insinuates they're definitely going to bang soon. So you are correct. Yeah. He says it because she's like delirious. Yeah. And she's like, what? Yeah. And he does check his lust in this scene because she does just try to kiss him. She's like, you want to kiss me? We can make out. Might be fun. Yeah. And he's like, not currently because you are like feverish and delirious. You're like drunk, basically. Yeah. He's like, I'm not going to do that. So
he tells her no.
He does. Book boyfriend is checking all the boxes.
I must say he's
10 out of 10 out of 10.
He's like, not today.
Yes. He's like, not yet. And I'm like, that's right. Important yet. Yet doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Oh my God.
So they do move on from that. They chat on the car ride about Jamie's like tumultuous 20s, what the girls were like when they were babies. And they talk about like Mika's resurgent curiosity. She kind of admits to Jamie, like, I asked Primrose all these questions because I think the girls need answers. Like maybe I didn't realize how much I needed answers until I saw in them how important it is to know where you're from. And like,
it's almost like she feels responsible as a teacher to them. That responsibility is leading her to like ask questions on behalf of them.
Exactly. So I'm like, that's great. That is what everyone needed.
Yeah.
So when they get home late that night, Ian is up waiting for him. He's predictably so excited to see Mika and Jamie's coat. And to her credit, Mika glazes past this. She's just like, doesn't even acknowledge Ian. And she gives us a little download when everybody's asking questions about the day. She tells a story about her ex at the center of the whole cover-up story to Primrose.
Is horrible.
So fucking heartbreaking. It sounds like he was the first person probably that Mika felt close to, maybe in her entire life. Mm-hmm. And after she trusted him with the truth that she's a witch, he manipulated and took advantage of her power in just like the grossest way. And of all the things, like during the story, I think one of the things that got to me the most is that she's fighting like the feeling of shame over what this dickbag did to her, you know, like it's clear she spent many years being very ashamed of this period in her life and like has gotten over it, but it still is like in the back of her head. Like, I can't be ashamed about that. Yeah. This was not my doing. This was not my fault. It sounds like also like some of her worst nannies and tutors have done similar things to her.
Yes.
Like,
well, there was the funny nanny who like thought she was experimented on by the United States government or something
and just
like that.
ran.
By the British government or something.
She thinks that she's like an MI6 plant or something. Yes, that was a little...
That one was funny.
I did like that. Yeah. But like...
It lightened everything up because that was pretty brutal.
Yes, yeah. A lot of these nannies and then this boyfriend find out she's a witch and they're like, oh, could you just like cheat on tests for me? Could you get extra money from the ATM for me? Yeah. And she would do it because she is so starved for attention and connection.
Yeah. She wants to belong.
Yes.
I did tell my wife about this, and
really?
She told me if I could do magic, she would.
So she would do that?
Make me get
this
her
would
money
be her
from
response.
The ATM.
Yeah, she would.
She was like, "Well, yeah, of course.
Who wouldn't do that?
You have magic."
Womp. I don't know. I like Jamie in this scene. I feel a dull rage thinking about how fucking greasy just like humanity is writ large. It just sucks that like when you hear about that, you're like, well, I mean, yeah, right. I think also this is like probably an American thing. We live in a place where more people than not would be like, well, yeah, we're going to get ours.
Yeah, we get ours, right?
Yes. But they do, thank God, bring the vibes right back to warm and supportive by like all the other adults comfort Mika. They reflect on, you know, I think in order to give her some sense of comfort, Ian and Ken end up just like reflecting on their like perfect, incandescent, beautiful relationship that just is supportive and lovely.
They're lovely.
Yes. So Mika ends up going up to bed. She sleeps until dinner the next day.
Oh,
and
wow.
the dinner is another beautiful cozy scene. Everyone at the meal discussing festivities for the solstice in a few days.
Very exciting.
Happy solstice, witches. Mika needs to stock up on potion ingredients, brew everything she can because the day is just magically powerful.
Yeah.
And
don't ask too much more about it. We don't know.
We don't need
it's
to know.
It's just better.
Yeah.
These days.
It's a witch holiday.
Yeah.
It's the moon and the sun and the planets. Natural.
Keep going.
That's all I got. That's what the solstice is.
Yeah.
Lucy says, because it is a witchy holiday, Lucy says it's the preferred winter holiday at Nowhere House. So that's where they go big.
Oh.
Christmas is just like a day, but solstice is where they fuck shit up.
Don't they ask like Santa to like change when he delivers?
Yeah, they tell
presents?
the girls that
Yeah.
Santa brings presents just to their house on the solstice.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yes. I'm kind of down for this as a new norm. Like Christmas, festive, sure. Yes, we'll absolutely. I mean, look at us. Look at us.
Look at us on this podcast.
Also, you know, Christmas sometimes can veer like a little stuffy and traditional. It's the same thing all the time. But solstice, festive still, but mysterious and witchy, up for interpretation, could do anything. A little chaotic. I think I'm making this officially a solstice positive podcast.
Yes, if you'd like to start celebrating the solstice, we're
super down.
That.
But back to dinner. Jamie announces he's going to see his mother in Liverpool for her birthday the next day, it causes nothing short of an uproar at the dinner table. Everyone except for Mika is like pissed.
Does Ian call him an idiot or
Yes.
something?
He and Ian like straight up fight. Like they are staring daggers at one another. It is very tense. Mika,
I was so weirded out by that. I was like,
yes,
what is happening?
Mika, like us, is very confused at all of this. Apparently, there is some shit going on with Jamie's family. But Ian, the old man with 1,000 plans, all of them bad, uses Jamie's like tense family reunion as an opportunity to send Mika along to like ostensibly cut his drive time in half. Ian's just like, you could be his magical fast track.
Yeah. Take him there in the wormhole.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Everybody ends up agreeing to this also, which I'm just like, great. Let Ian be in charge. Who decided this?
It's a bad idea.
Yes. So the next morning, Jamie is like a ball of nerves at the prospect of this family visit. And Ken, in all of his tender, sensitive glory, comforts his little baby boy. And we get more hints that Jamie's tumultuous childhood that brought him to Nowhere House, like we get pieces of that backstory, still not the whole thing.
Yeah.
And Ken even has some solid gold advice for Jamie about how to be gentle and loving to Mika in light of her abandonment issues.
Yes.
So like Ken is reading the room.
I feel like
I would
Ken
say.
gets the vibe. Is this where Ken says like Mika's gonna leave?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
He's
think
like
one
a
of many
sage.
places. Yeah, he keeps saying like, you know, she does have a difficult past and like things are going to make her run.
She does
one way
run.
or another.
That's her pattern.
Yeah.
She is going to leave. So keep it in mind.
Yes.
He seemed lovely.
Yes. I think we need to get ourselves a Ken. I think we need to get everyone a Ken. That's
Everyone
my solstice
needs a Ken
present.
in their life. Yeah.
Get yourself a Ken. So the drive for Mika and Jamie.
He is definitely enough. You know what I mean?
He is Ken more than enough. The drive starts pretty uneventfully with Mika explaining how the speed spell is just casually a wormhole, which is amazing. Just opening him up across the country roads on the British Isle.
Doesn't make any sense, but you know what? I love it.
Yes, but since they're making magically good time, the benefit this gives us is that they're able to stop along the way in some of the woods to do Mika's like solstice foraging. They each end up making like deep confessions in the woods. They're getting vulnerable. We love to see it. These two clearly feel safe and comfortable with each other. So I like that we're getting that like illustrated on screen. It's like there is a connection here that is strong. There's like no holding back.
Yes.
Which is nice.
It was very beautiful.
Yes, Mika tells Jamie that while a lot of witches she knows like leave their magic on the back burner in favor of leading more traditional lives. So basically, they know their magic and they're like, I just don't really use it. I almost like deny that side of my personality because I want to
be normal.
Yes,
essentially.
like have a family, have friends, have a community. So
Yeah.
like these two things are at odds with each other. And for Mika, she says she feels like her magic should be the center of her life. It's kind of what we talked about earlier. Like she will take the cons because for her, magic is everything. Magic is worth. She loves it so much.
Yeah. She's a witch.
Yes.
In the
she's
truest
a witch
sense.
girl.
Yeah.
And she wishes she could run her own potion and tea shop. She's like, this is my
nice.
like ultimate dream. And she laments like that she can't really have connection and community because of embracing her magic. It's really melancholy, I think, overall, is the vibe I get.
The pacing is actually, you know, for a book that doesn't have like a detailed plot.
Yeah.
This pacing is up and down on this, and in a way that keeps it going. That I'm like, oh, I'm okay.
Yeah, everybody's nice, and then you're like, oh shit, right? They're all very damaged. They have very sad lives.
Everyone's flawed.
Yes.
And hurt.
Yes. I think it makes a lot of sense, though, the way Mika presents it here, and it fucking breaks Jamie's heart, which I'm like, oh, you love her.
His beautiful angular face.
You love her. His beautiful angular heart. It's broken. But all of her vulnerability also leads Jamie to finally give his grumpy librarian origin story. He had a very rough childhood. His brothers were assholes, and his angel of a dad died, which just gave his brothers basically free reign to abuse him for years.
Like they abused him,
yes,
right?
they did.
Okay.
And his mom was too devastated over the death of her husband to step in for Jamie, which is just
Bad mom.
super, super sad.
Yeah.
Mika definitely is like, your mom fucking sucks. And
Yeah.
Jamie's like, she was trying. And Mika was like, her best was not. He's like, she was doing her best. And Mika was like, her best is not good enough.
Yeah.
Not word for word, but that was
You're getting abused.
yes, a problem.
Yeah, it's a problem.
So it turns out this visit, is going to be the first time Jamie has seen any member of his family since running away and ending up at Nowhere House. So it's been a long time. They make it to the museum that Jamie's going to go meet his mom at. Mika waits outside and accidentally runs into one of the other witches for the society. It's like the first time
no.
she's seen another witch in the wild.
Yeah.
Which was jarring too. I was like, oh shit. We don't need this. We're doing Jamie stuff. We're doing emotional healing.
I was like, wait, no. And this
Yes.
is a testament to how into it I was. Like, well, this will blow the roof right off the...
Yes. And Mika and this other witch seem entirely at a loss for how to be in public with one another. They're like, the girl's like,
Book
this
club?
is Mika from my book club.
Online. It's online
Virtual
book club.
Yes. She's with her fiance. And I feel like the whole thing that's just had the vibe of like when you see your teacher at a restaurant when you're a kid, like out in public. But after the witch's fiance heads into the museum, Mika's friend admits that her fiance still doesn't know the truth. She doesn't know she's a witch. Yeah. And Mika encourages her to take a leap of faith, but they can both imagine exactly the kind of choice words Primrose would have about that whole idea.
Don't they say it at
that
the
whole
same
philosophy?
time?
Yes,
start,
they
like,
do.
making fun of her.
Like, not a very good idea. Pop it. Very Primrose for sure. But I like that, you know, there's still that whole underlying, it's never far away. Like, this is a problem. It's not just a problem for Mika.
Yeah. We could all be burned at the stake soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
So shortly after Mika and her friend part ways, like literally 10 minutes after, Jamie comes back out of the museum and Mika's like, well, that wasn't fucking long. But he gets a little prize from his painful family reunion, which is his dad's old journals. So that was like his most prized possession as a kid. His brothers took him and they all gave him back at this museum visit, which
I did think it was funny that he just like, we gotta go. I got the diaries. I was like, did he just like go in there?
Hell yeah.
Just like
secured the bag. We don't know. We don't need to know.
You don't need to know.
He seems to have gotten the closure, Dane, that he was looking for.
Well, I was like, this is very brief. Did you just go in there and like light him up and was like, I got the books.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know. Can neither confirm nor deny.
Well, the thing he said about his mom was weird. Like where they just both wanted to see that they were both okay.
Yes. Well, he said, so to me, I guess it read as like, it's very healthy as a take on closure. He says when he and his mom last saw each other, when they parted ways, they were both very broken people and they don't need to have a relationship. There's too much there. There's too much pain, too much time has passed. They're never going to be a close family unit. But what they both probably needed, what felt unresolved for each of them, was just knowing that the other was okay, was in a better place than they were when they parted, you know?
That makes sense.
So
that makes sense.
That's really fucking
It was
healthy.
nice. It just,
He's just like, that was all I needed.
Yeah.
Which I think,
good for you, Jamie.
if you're gonna work through your childhood trauma, like it is good to know what you want out of confronting that kind of pain.
Really
You are a basic bitch. Which books, Spice Girls references? I knew someday I'd break you. So on the way home, Mika plays with her magic dust in the car, and Jamie wonders if, like we're saying, how these random encounters between witches kind of keep happening. That whole thing is always simmering.
Yeah.
Jamie actually poses it as like maybe magic itself, this like entity that's separate from you all, wants to gather witches together. It wants you to be connected. So I like that take on it.
Yeah.
But he so clearly wants Mika to have her community, her tea shop.
Yeah.
And as much as every fiber of her being wants things to change, she's been through, I think, just too much isolation and rejection to believe it's possible. She just like can't engage. It is too scary. Stakes are too high.
She's like, you don't understand.
Yeah. And I can't say that she's wrong. So my section ends on that devastating note, which sucks. But we do get a final parting glimmer of Jamie hinting even is a strong word for what's happening. He just has zero subtlety about how obsessed he is with Mika. And if that's my consolation prize on this sad ending, I will take it.
Well, it's not time for long
No.
because like my first chapter starts with a beautiful, wonderful moment where Jamie takes Mika to the forest.
Yeah.
So they can forage for her magical needs.
Yes, he knows what she needs, Dana. He sees her.
They pretty instantly start making out.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, going out at each other in the forest.
Yeah.
And I will say, I was like, are they going to fuck in the forest? Jesus.
Sangu Mandanna knew that you were thinking
I was
that.
like, they're going to fuck in this forest.
And Mika was like, we're not going to fuck in the forest.
She stops him. She's like, we are not doing that.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
Jamie ends their magical night as they get home. They get back to the car. And as they get home and trying to sell her on making her tea shop again.
Yeah.
Which is
He's like, you should fucking do it.
Which is lovely. The Winter Solstice begins.
Yes. Happy solstice.
Happy solstice, everybody. It seems like Mika has to prepare many things for spells.
Yes.
Again, I won't go into it. She's making potions in her cauldron. She's brewing up fairy wine, which is the girls are very excited to have. It is essentially just sweet syrup, lavender, and stardust tea with some extra pizzazz.
Yes.
What that pizzazz is, again, vague, but it sounds lovely.
We don't need to know. You seem very fixated on knowing.
Well, I'm normally the deep dive guy who would tell us about the magic. I can't in this, so
No.
I'm going to bring it up. I guess around and especially on the solstice, magic is more powerful, and thus Mika is trying to capitalize on that.
Yeah. The moon.
Sure. While she's doing this, the girls are now working on animating a real-sized metal horse together.
Yes, wild.
Which I have to say probably looks fucking metal.
Yeah.
I would
literally.
Yeah, I want to see that running around a house. It would just be so cool.
I'd be a little scared. Horses are big.
Yeah.
They're always bigger than I think they're going to be.
Yeah, it'd be wild.
Yeah.
The name of the book shows up in this little section. So the girls are frustrated trying to move the horse, and Mika tells them that they are special and doing good, and like no one practices this, and no one does spells together. She explains that like witches don't do this; they don't normally do this, and Mika herself had actually never done it before she'd come. And then she says that they're irregular in this way, and the girls then excitedly come up with their own secret society, the very secret society of irregular witches.
Yeah,
so wonderful. It all sounds so wonderful. There are fairy lights everywhere and winter decorations, a tree decorated in the house, light decorations of reindeer, polar bears, and penguins. Something called a snowflake hunt in the library is happening.
Yes.
A garden full of unseasonable food is bursting to be eaten and cooked like mini baked goods. The house smells delicious.
Yes, it seems like Lucy and Ian hold it down in the kitchen.
Yeah, they're getting it going. It sounds amazing. The solstice, I write almost everything a note I wrote starts with "it sounds lovely." So I'm sorry, I'm trying to edit my. This just sounds. And the whole time I was reading this, I was like, "This is so lovely."
Yes.
So the solstice in the morning, they exchange gifts. Ian knitted everyone a sweater.
Yes.
Which,
they're all just like super bright colors.
Yeah,
Very
that's
fun.
a lot of sweaters to knit.
Yes. I would like an Ian sweater though.
I bet they're warm.
Hell yeah.
And Mika gets a vintage journal as a new spellbook from the girls who noticed that her spellbook was running low on pages.
Very thoughtful gift giving.
Yeah, they get her lots of potted plants.
Yes.
I love all this. And then Mika gives everyone tea leaves with nice little tea leaf descriptions that make everybody cry.
Yes.
So
somebody won Christmas or solstice, sorry.
yeah, solstice. Yeah, Mika totally won.
Yeah.
Then they eat a gorgeous meal after a scavenger hunt looking for snowflakes. And they end the rest of the day with movies and board games. And when the kids fall asleep, they all get drunk.
Amazing. That's a perfect holiday, honestly.
It does sound lovely. Which leads Mika asking Jamie if they can talk in the back. And I love how she does it. She's like, can we talk? And then just leaves. Ian is smug and drunk, which is a bad combo. Because he's like, ooh. Yeah, it's a whole thing. Can't blame the man.
He is right.
He is totally right.
Technically.
That's the time you can be smug, Ian. Mika's obviously confused because Jamie hasn't mentioned anything since they
He's
made out
pulled
in the
away,
forest.
visibly since the forest incident. So the couple days between that and the solstice, he's just been very distant, clearly avoiding her.
Yes. So Jamie explains that Mika doesn't do serious.
Yeah.
And
she's a runner.
He doesn't do casual.
Yeah.
He then says the most savage but true thing to her, that she's never believed she's been good enough for anyone.
Oh.
So she won't think that she's good enough for him. And I fell in love with Jamie, right? In that moment, I was like, do I love this fictitious man?
You do, yeah.
I was like,
telling
oh my
hard
God.
truths.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God. Jamie will make her angry, and he says, the moment he makes her angry, the first excuse, she's going to run away.
Yes.
There's this undertone here that hints that we, the reader, still don't know something about Nowhere House.
Yes, for sure.
And it's been growing in this whole book. We have mentioned it a few times, but it's now palpable, and it's a part of this interaction.
Yes, it's for a long time I thought it was just okay, Jamie has a secret backstory. And then as soon as he told the secret backstory, I was like, oh, there's other stuff still.
Yes.
We still got things in
going
here.
on. There's a mystery that Jamie can't tell Mika. He explains this, that she will eventually find out, and he can't tell her for reasons.
Yes.
It's all very mysterious, and eventually Mika just walks away. She's like, okay, Jamie,
whatever.
Don't tell me. And Jamie thinks on the fact that what he is doing is the same thing that's always been done to Mika. Mm-hmm. No one has chosen her. No one has just straight up loved her and trusted her and let her in.
Yeah.
And that by not telling her and forcing her to just live with that, he's putting her on the outside just like everybody else in her life.
Yeah.
And just like she's been on the outside of all those tutors and everything.
Yeah.
And he decides that in that moment, he's going to tell her. And I have to say, I fell in love with Jamie again.
I think that is a hallmark of a good romance book. It's if I fell in love with our book boyfriend 5 different times in this book, you fucking crushed it.
Yeah,
if I fell in love with our book girlfriend 6 different times in this book, you crushed it.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Love him.
Yes,
so
do it, Mika. He loves you.
The secret, though, is a doozy. It's not a great one.
It's pretty bad.
So basically, the quick version is that Lillian is dead. and was buried in the backyard of Nowhere House beneath the sunflowers.
Yes, the unnatural sunflowers. Lillian's just back there taking a little holiday dirt nap.
The ones that have been brought up several times. She died in June. But remember, we're in December 21st when she had last
I thought that was wild. I was like, oh, it's been a long time.
A while. When she had first come to the house before she went to South America.
Yes.
So the 4 caretakers were in a panic because they knew about Lillian's will.
Yes.
So Ken and Lucy in the will would get some money.
Yes.
Jamie would get the property and all of her possessions. Mm-hmm. And the 3 girls would go to Lillian's sister, Peony.
Yes.
The one person that none of them have ever met.
Yes.
But another witch that Lillian thought she wanted the girls to be in the care of.
Yeah.
When Lillian died, the caretakers, all of them, Ian, Ken, Lucy, all of them, didn't want to break up their family.
Of course
they're
not.
essentially a family now.
Yes.
And also, Jamie went to a solicitor to see if he could get the girls.
Yes, that he was in there talking about somebody's will. He was talking about probate law.
Yeah. It is, in fact, is why he went to the will. So the caretakers of Nowhere Home and its 3 witches decided not to report her death.
Yes.
And to bury her body in the back. Edward complicated the situation because a month before Mika was contacted by Ian, Edward had contacted Jamie and told him that he hadn't been able to get a hold of Lillian for months.
Yes.
And was concerned. And then they were like pushing him off to meet with him as much as they could. But then Edward got suspicious and he sent a formal legal letter to the caretakers of Nowhere House. And now they have to meet Edward.
Because he's coming to investigate a murder, which does make more sense why they do feel pressure about the lawyer visit, because they are like, we are very much covering up a murder, and he very much knows that we did the murder.
Well they
sorry,
didn't murder,
not a murder,
a death.
Yes, you're right.
A possible missing person is what's going on. How do you feel about this on a scale of 1 to bad? How bad of a thing did they do you think?
Ooh, morally, I guess this deep into this book, I'm so Mika brained. I am one with our protagonist. So I feel like I'm looking at it through the lens of their intentions were so good. It makes sense to me why they felt like they had to do it.
Yes.
Lillian did die of natural causes. They do not have a good way out of this situation. We saw with Mika, even when she was grievously injured, like they can't really take a witch to the hospital. They can't really like have a witch be investigated by a coroner.
Well, I don't think that was the idea was that. I think it was like, how would we explain how this happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because like something is amiss, basically.
Yeah. But like if she had an embolism, like if she had like a heart attack or something, I think you could take her to the hospital.
You
like,
think?
She had a heart attack. Yeah. I didn't get that impression. I got the impression was more like, we don't want her to be found because we don't want the will to be
Maybe
enacted.
it was all the MI6 experimentation discussion that had me like, well, we can't take her to the government.
The government's in on it.
Yes.
This is a sleeper agent.
Yes. So I guess I'm understanding, I'm rationalizing kind of with Mika why they would do this, because this unit is so special. We've seen how unique, how precious it is, how much it needs protection. Yeah. Even the 8-year-old understands that, like, fundamentally. I mean,
the law has been subverted.
I don't care.
The will of Lillian has been subverted.
I care.
Morally, this is wrong.
Yeah.
And this is bad. I'm just
Lillian's
kidding.
wishes...
It's totally fine. I don't care about this at all. I don't think this is morally bad at all.
No. I feel like Lillian's wishes were for the children to be raised by a witch. The only other witch she knew was her sister.
Yeah.
So...
if Peony had been involved in some form, this would be morally bad. If they had murdered Lillian...
yeah, that'd be a problem.
This would be morally bad. But Lillian just died.
Yeah.
They don't know Peony.
Yeah.
Edward sounds like a bigot.
He definitely is.
So I don't really see any moral problem. I think it's stupid. I think this decision was dumb.
It's not well thought out, no.
Yeah.
It definitely seems like something done in panic. And then I think for me, all I can fixate on as the big moral quandary is like, why wouldn't you have fucking told Mika? Like, you were close to her. She came into the fold, but it does get explained. So
yes. So Ian thought basically we learned that Ian thought maybe Mika could disguise herself with magic as Lillian and fool Edward after she got to know the girls. Mm-hmm. They were really desperate, which is why Ian kept asking if she can change her appearance.
Yeah.
Obviously, Mika's mad because she's being used.
It's happening again.
Yeah, it proves everything Jamie thought about her if he left her out, right? Like, he's enacting this pattern.
Yes.
And then Mika thinks that despite all she did and how well she got to know all them, she let her guard down. Mika feels like she just isn't enough. So she's too hurt.
Yeah.
So Mika won't tell on them because she, like us, is like, this isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
But she will leave only to come back to help when Edward comes.
Yeah. She's like, I don't think you're bad, but I can't be a part of this anymore because I've been viciously hurt.
Potentially there's going to be some legal things going on. I don't want to get involved. Jamie's eyes shining like diamonds. Sorry, I wanted to quote the text. Apologizes, but it's not enough. No. Mika goes 3 hours to a townhouse in York, the one she grew up in.
Yes, her Primrose house.
Yes. Mika questions everything and believes nothing is real.
Yeah.
No one loves Mika. This house sounds horrible, by the way.
Yes,
it's empty and dark and has nothing on the walls. Honestly, for some reason, I pictured the house of Sirius Black.
Yes, 100%.
Anyway.
13 Grimald Place.
Yes.
Before they clean it.
Clean it up. Yeah. And speaking of that, Mika spends hours cleaning the house until it's unrecognizable. She has a little cry in the shower. And then in the morning...
Same, girls. We stan a relatable queen.
She basically then wakes up and buries herself in work to fix the Edward problem.
Yeah, they have a couple more days, right?
Yeah, it's like 4. She has 4 days. So she quickly realizes that she can't figure out the glamour herself.
Yeah.
And instead switches on perfecting a confuddling potion.
Yes.
So she spends days and days focused on this, only stopping to miss them and cry a little bit.
Yeah.
When suddenly it's Christmas.
Yes.
And she notices that the way all lonely people do that it's Christmas.
Yeah.
I think when it's Christmas and you're lonely, you're just like, oh, is it Christmas?
Shit.
Because the existential dread of happiness everyone else is having.
Something's ticked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very sad. And I think this is what you're talking about. This is where she's like, I am good at potions. I can potion a solution to this problem.
Because she even says, I probably could figure this out, but I can't figure this out in 4 days.
Yes.
It's doable for sure,
yeah.
but I don't know how to do that. So
I guess, too, now I'm just thinking this for the first time. Is it less of a stupid decision what all the Nowhere House adults did? They did it in panic, but they also do live in a world where magic is real. They're somewhere on the table for them is the idea that somebody might present a magical solution to their problem.
I mean, but the whole thing is, the only reason I would say it's dumb still is you're gambling on a stranger then
yes,
that you don't
correct.
know and
yeah.
magic that you don't.
Absolutely
we don't even
correct.
understand the rules of the magic or reading this book.
No.
You know what I mean? So I think it's less dumb.
Yes.
But
I think that's
dumb.
a slight mitigating factor for me.
Yeah, because you want to know a for sure way children will be taken away from you? Hide a dead person's body.
Hide a body in the garden.
Yeah. Anyway,
Hang on, I need to make a note. Yeah. Write it down for posterity.
Then there's a knock on the door. And it's Jamie.
Of course it's Jamie, Dane.
And the way this is written made me chuckle. I don't read romance stuff ever. And this is probably the most romantic section I ever read. I'm not going to repeat any of it, but it's tame. It's very tame.
Yes.
But it goes on for a paragraph describing his features.
Yes.
And her feelings.
Yes.
And his feelings.
And their first confrontation and discussion at the door is so fraught and so angsty,
she walks away,
so much longing.
She leaves the door open. It's amazing.
Incredible stuff. Well, it's I liked that we had a little mirror moment between them too, when they have their confrontation, when they have their big fight out on the beach.
Yeah.
Jamie looks at Mika. He knows what he's about to get himself into. He knows he's about to hurt her and she's going to run. And it's written in there, he spends a minute just looking at her before he does it, memorizing her features, just imprinting her for his memory, which is so fucking sad. She does the same thing when he's at the door. She spends a minute just looking at him being I'm never going to be able to have this. Yeah. I want it so bad.
Yikes.
It's so sad.
Yikes.
But
you really got me. I read this whole book. I enjoyed this whole thing.
Read this whole book twice.
Yeah,
maybe 3 times?
I did.
Question mark?
Well, my wife read it, so I read it with her too.
Yes.
I've read this book a lot.
Yes. I have only really gotten into, again, a couple romance series myself, but I am not mad about what is happening in this book at all.
Well, tell us what happens in this chapter.
We
Jacqui.
start this final section putting a bit of a pin in the simmering sexual tension. So we don't lean straight into, it's not knock on the door, they tumble into the hallway.
No.
Mika puts him in the living room. He has a reunion with the dog.
Yeah. Well, Cersei is happy.
Yes, Cersei's very happy. Mika makes tea and in the kitchen just tries to pull herself together before sitting down. Right. And Jamie does not waste time. He hits her hard in the feels by telling her all the adults came clean to the girls about the Lillian situation. And the girls were pissed. They don't give a shit about Lillian, which was very funny.
Yes.
They were pissed that it drove Mika away. The girls are very mad at all of their parental figures for doing something that endangered their new family unit.
Well, it's a democracy.
Yes.
And there are now a lot of people upset.
Yes. We know bad stuff happens when that's the case.
A small minority rises up. And
the children are our future.
The children are the future.
Yes. So Jamie tells Mika everybody wants her home. He's you belong with us. And Mika is so fucking healthy. She is thinking through this. She can understand, like I said, and forgive what they did because of their intentions, because it was for the girls. She's I do know how important it is for you to keep them together. I alone know how important that is.
Yeah.
But she can't get over not knowing how much of what happened between all of them, how much of her connection and her place in that family is real, and how much of it was based on them needing her, using her, however you want to chalk it up.
She can't trust, essentially.
Yes. But a tick in the column for returning to Nowhere House is that Mika can see already that her initial reaction on the solstice was a trauma response. And being in Primrose's house all these days has made her put this situation in a lot more perspective, which again, it's just like so healthy, so much emotional maturity, I think, for Mika. And then we kick the romance back up several notches. We put a pin in it, take that pin right back out.
What happened?
Our book boyfriend literally gets on his knees to like bare his soul, like beg Mika basically to come home. He sees her and he understands her wounds. Like he makes it very clear that he knows what's wrong in this situation. And he says, just like, the most perfect apology of all time, saying like, I just want to support you as you like work to heal this trauma and grow with our little family. It's so beautiful. And so in this like raw, emotional, but hopeful place now, Mika's also looking back on parts of her past and seeing the small kindnesses and acts of support Primrose actually gave her. Like she's looking around the house being like, you know what? Maybe everything was not always shitty. Maybe she was kind of nice to me. And that caught me by surprise in this section, you know?
Yeah.
I think I was expecting, maybe because we haven't read a lot of romance and maybe this is so much more common than either of us know, but I was expecting in a romantic book to give us like our main character healing through the lens of her relationship, you know, like being healthy with this guy. And I was really happy to get that, but adding like her independent acceptance of her childhood to the stew was just like, surprise, unexpected delight.
It wasn't
for
that
me.
like it was bad, but maybe not as bad as I thought it was.
Yes, and I just like love this journey. I think it's just true acceptance, you know, looking at the positives and the negatives and being able to
I don't know what that feels like. But
being able to
in theory it sounds lovely.
Yes, being able to make peace with both things. So after Jamie professes that allowing yourself to be truly loved is inherently an act of trust, he says he'll take whatever measure of trust Mika is capable of giving him. He's like, I just want you, whatever you're able to give. And they kind of leave it there for the rest of the afternoon. Mm-hmm. They just like eat and drink. They have a little like 2-man Christmas. They talk all Christmas afternoon until, drum roll please, Dane, they're going to go to bed. It's happening. Mika invites him. She's like, I'm going to go to bed. You want to come? And I'm like, classic. Solid line. I am not going to graphically describe what happens on this podcast. Everyone is welcome for that decision on my part. But I will say highlights include classic book boyfriend moves, like kissing her while leaning against the door, making low sounds in his throat, and of course, forearms. You know, book boyfriend stuff. Jamie stays the night after it all happens because he's obsessed with our girl, and we fade to black. And it is a hard pivot, the hardest conceivable pivot to the beginning of the next chapter, where we get our introduction at long last to the painfully average evil solicitor, Edward Foxhaven. It's a perfect name.
It is.
Absolutely no notes from Edward's own internal monologue. So this third person limited now is like basically Edward's point of view, which I'm like, amazing. Solid choice. Was not expecting that.
It's pretty great.
Yes. From his internal monologue, we see pretty quickly that he's a bigot and a racist and a xenophobe. And he's also just like anal as hell and fixated on proving that, like, I think in the parlance of someone like Edward, these people did something to his like beloved rich client.
Also in like perfect like I'm better than you guy, he also hates everyone he works with.
Yes,
and like the managers don't work hard enough for something. It's like I was like, who is
like,
this guy?
Only I read contracts perfectly. I've never missed a thing. And it's like, fucking lawyers, am I right?
Yeah.
But we see Edward greeted at the door of Nowhere House by the horrifying visage of Lillian's reanimated skeleton.
Dressed up.
And then we immediately cut back to Jamie and Mika. So, like, we see Edward see that thing.
Okay, when I read this the first time, I literally was like, wait a minute. I, like, stopped. I was listening to this part, and I stopped and I was like... What is happening? Like, I looked at my phone. I was like, is this still the book? I like went back. I was like, what is happening?
I just love for something with this like low simmer plot line throughout. Like, I think it's probably just really good writing that
Yeah.
there's still this much like, oh, wait, what?
Yeah.
I think it is hitting, maybe it's a pacing thing. Like it's resolving plot lines in an order and at a pace that keeps you interested, keeps you in like.
Because this isn't that exciting, but it feels exciting.
Well, see, I think that's just like.
Your opinion, man.
It's just like your opinion, man. No, I just think it's like by nature of so many things you read, you're like, well, compared to the end of the world, the stakes are low. It's not exciting, but like healing your personal trauma is high stakes. But I also think just like that is something based on what you usually read. And I think it.
Yeah, I just finished Red Rising, right?
Yes. Very different stakes.
Galactic slavery is probably a little different than,
Real talk. So we do cut back to, we do not know what happened when Edward met a dead woman walking around a mansion. We cut back to Jamie and Mika just rolling up, like loved up morning afterglow, just like pulling up in the car. And utter disaster is in full swing.
Yeah.
Edward obviously arrived early, which as a side note,
if you're not early, you're late.
As a side note, that is one of my all-time least favorite character traits. It's like if you're going to somebody's home, do not surprise them early. Nobody wants to see you 5 minutes early, or like it seems like hours early at their house.
In this, me and you are different.
Ugh. No, for a party, do not show up to people's parties early.
For a party.
That's rude.
Don't come. But this is a solicitor coming to an appointment.
An appointment. He was like hours early.
We don't know how they do it in England.
Do you think this is a cultural difference? Maybe. So after all hell obviously broke loose with the skeleton situation, the girls locked Edward in the shed. And I love that Mika's first response is to be a little proud of the girls for finally working together to animate a complex object. But we are really in the shit. We cannot dwell on that.
Good job.
You did it, but also fuck.
Well, isn't she also horrified? She's like, it is a body, though.
That is a person's remains.
And then I think one of the kids is like, we didn't put it together properly. So
yes, we missed a couple pieces. Truly horrifying.
Horrifying.
I love these plucky little witches. So Edward obviously definitely knows Lillian's dead now. He definitely thinks a murder happened. And when Jamie and Mika head inside to like assess the situation with the other adults, there's first a lovely little reunion with Mika, but short-lived because Ian and Terracotta right away vote in favor of murdering Edward. So doing a murder to cover up a natural death.
Yeah.
And after that awful plan gets handily shot down and Mika refuses to leave, they all try to get her to go so she doesn't get implicated.
Which is the nicest thing they could do, I have to say. So
nice. But she's like, no, I am a part of this.
This is how me and Mika are different. I'm like,
okay,
all right, good luck.
Love you guys.
Please call me if this is fixed.
Please call me if you're not in prison. Yeah, she decides that she actually is going to be the one to confront Edward. In the shed, it goes pretty poorly and ends when Mika threatens to strangle him with vines to keep him quiet.
It's going great.
Yes. We regroup. Options are so limited. Maybe couldn't be more limited, but Mika has a realization that there is one unpalatable way for all of them to get out of this pickle, and it's none other than the root of her childhood trauma, Dane. We're going to recreate.
The McGovern has been Primrose the whole time.
We're just going to recreate the worst thing that ever happened to Mika over and over and over here in her adulthood and see if it helps.
Yep.
So they can call in, obviously, Primrose's memory spell, and nobody wants to do it. Mika pitches it because we live in a democracy. She pitches it to the group, and nobody's happy about it, but they do all agree this is probably the only way.
Yes.
So Primrose arrives in record time, also out here creating wormholes. And Mika turns down Jamie's offer of emotional support to go meet Primrose alone, download her on the whole disaster. So Mika's like, I got this. I'm strong. I'm independent.
Which makes sense.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Primrose comes in ready to help. Again, just to her credit, Primrose on screen in this book, I do really like. I think she doesn't air often in what we see of her. Her past actions, problematic. But when Mika asks if she might be able to update the wards, Mika's like, great. You're going to solve this problem. Also, are you in the business to like solve a couple other little conundrums?
Yeah.
Primrose mentions that her sister was the one who was extra good at wards. mysterious Dane.
Who could her sister have been?
Yes, Mika explains she only asked Primrose about this because the witch who cast the wards is the one who's dead. And when she says Lillian's name, Primrose stops cold and is like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And at that moment, all the other adults rush out of the house looking stricken, looking like they are seeing a ghost, obviously. And they call Primrose Lillian. And it turns out they were twins. So twin magic is everywhere on this podcast.
Yeah.
What is the deal with
this is the second
twins
book.
and magic?
Second book, second set of twins, also magic.
Yes.
Weird.
Yes. But I guess Primrose and Lillian had a rough childhood too. Seems very common among witches. And it evolved for them into a very strained relationship with each other. They had not seen one another in 15 years. They both went their separate ways after their childhood. They each changed their names. So their shitty family couldn't find them.
Isn't the reason they didn't talk though? Because they just disagreed on witches?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
But they still kept separate their entire lives. They were never a little family unit after their
Maybe I just
childhoods.
misunderstood. I thought that was not because of the trauma. I thought the trauma was why they were hiding from their family.
Yeah,
I thought the reason they were estranged was because they didn't agree about it.
Yes, that's a reason they haven't seen each other or really spoken in
Gotcha.
years. But what this means, because of the will, is that Primrose is legally the girl's guardian. She's the one who's supposed to be in charge. So the hits really just keep coming.
Yeah.
Primrose recognizes Ian right away because of his mom. They were friends.
And confirmed Primrose is ancient.
Yes, she is pretty fucking old. She tells everybody about the horrible upbringing she had. It included an exorcism, which I was just like,
That almost killed her.
Uh-oh. And she explained that Lillian worked and traveled her whole life. She wasn't just an archaeologist. She was trying to find communities of witches living in the open to proof of concept, basically, and make that the default instead of what Primrose advocated. So
she was an archaeologist. She was just trying to uncover hope.
Exactly. Ancient buried
hope.
Fossilized hope.
The best kind of hope.
Brittle. Fragile.
That's hilarious.
So Primrose gets to work on Edward, which takes her the rest of the day till the sun goes down. But she is successful in turning Edward's clock back on the entire day. It's basically just nothing ever happened. He just arrived at Nowhere House. Then Primrose very gamely agrees to act as Lillian.
Yeah.
She's just oh, sure, I'll pretend to be my dead sister.
She seems like she has a little fun with this.
Yeah, she does, for sure. And she fires Edward, which I love. He got the comeuppance he so deserved.
Yes.
And she sends him away for good, and things are actually looking optimistic, but not for long.
Yeah.
Because although Primrose knows how to deal with the bureaucracy of Lillian's death, she immediately has a plan. She's like, well, you're going to do this, and then I'm going to take the girls, we're going to separate them, and everybody's like, no, the fuck you're not.
Yeah.
Mika's not having that. I will be damned, but our girl manages to give a rousing argument to her foster mom and actually convinces her that there is more to life than isolation, than the rules, than the safety and protection that Primrose clearly needs.
Yeah.
And even beyond that, Mika uses her acceptance of her trauma to gently nudge Primrose to acknowledge and start to accept the idea that the older witch's trauma is driving all this militant secrecy.
You know what is funny too, and I thought the argument about even this situation wouldn't be fixed.
Yes.
If we didn't know each other.
Yes, we could not have fixed this problem.
And you don't.
I was not supposed to be allowed to text you.
Yeah. So even the function of this.
Yeah.
Can only happen.
Yes. So smart.
It was so smart.
Yes.
I was like, oh, that's such a good argument.
Yes, it is beautiful. It's wild because it works.
Well, I will say
Primrose Caves.
This is probably the most unrealistic part of this book. I like it. It was really well done, and it was realistically done. But there's floating dead corpses, and there's wormhole cars, and there's just beautiful jaws. But this part of this book
that
is
somebody's mother would accept the error of her ways and change on a dime.
Bring it up during high stakes, not a chance.
No.
Primrose would be okay, well, you don't understand.
Why don't you think about it?
Yeah.
I've been protecting you your whole life. That's why you get to be optimistic.
This is the only reason this book is fantasy.
God. Wild. I prefer to think,
I love it.
Primrose is better than
Primrose is great.
than first painted. But the girls have been eavesdropping this whole time, naturally. So they,
of course,
rush out hearing that Mika's been successful. And in all the celebration, Mika still, I liked this, is careful not to do any PDA in front of Primrose. She like wants to kiss Jamie and she's like, ooh, I can't.
Can't do that.
Yeah, I find it very quaint, very sweet. And after Primrose spends the rest of the evening getting to know the girls, it's like...
Hold on.
What?
This just hit me. They're going to talk about penises and when they've gotten like shagged the last time, but she can't kiss Jamie in front of her mom.
Yeah. Too awkward.
These people are confusing.
Contradictory.
Yeah,
yes.
Sorry. I was just like, wait a minute.
Yes. I do like, though, like Primrose is like, well, I guess I'll hang out for the night, get to know like basically my grandchildren, which is really cute.
Lovely.
And she spends the rest of the day doing that and leaves the universe's like sweetest, witchiest found family to their little domestic bliss. It's the best.
Lovely.
And the last chapter wraps up this book in truly just the most satisfying way possible. We've jumped to the spring now, and Mika has used her sunshiny wiles to convince both Primrose and Jamie, both notable dissidents, to let her host a Bring Your Family to Witch meeting day at Nowhere House. And the collective power of everyone there is going to be put to use to recast Lillian's ward. So there's an explanation. Mika has like one little reason.
She's like, because of the wards.
Duh. And everyone gets to have at least one beautiful afternoon of community, which I love. It turns out Jamie only agreed to this actually in exchange for Mika to promise to pursue her tea shop, which is her book boyfriend only gets more perfect.
I was like, that's clever.
Yes. And we get to walk around this little party with now professionally fulfilled Mika. She sees every single character basically and side character that we've met so far. And literally every single one of them is growing and thriving and getting healthier is the fucking best.
Yeah, that one chick told her girlfriend or whatever, right?
Yes, her fiance.
Yeah.
Even Primrose ends up like enjoying the party. She's like, Mika, this is special what you did.
Yeah,
so
it's
nice.
very lovely.
So our final cozy fantasy scene is the playful, loving banter between Jamie and Mika that I will, again, not repeat here because it's too good not to read for yourself. They're so cute. It's all literature-based, which, like, yes, you've written a book. We love
about
it.
Jane Austen or something.
Hell yeah. Some of the classics. Mika gets Jamie to come out of his library, meet everybody at the party. She like talks him into it. And the book fades out on the sentiment that doing your best to change your little corner of the world for the better is really all anybody can do. And leaving that mark on your community is the most fulfilling thing of all. And that's cozy fantasy, baby.
I was shocked that I liked it so much. I didn't like this a little. I really enjoyed this book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was when we were going to do this, I begrudgingly went into this with like, okay, I can't believe I'm doing this. And then I would say about 4 hours into it, I was like, oh,
damn.
Can't believe I haven't been doing this.
Yes, you read it before I did. So I proposed it. You finished it pretty quickly. And you were like, Jacqui,
like a day and a half.
I fucking love that book.
This book made me cry.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
I think I wanted to talk a little bit, do a little bit of an analysis section, not long. I think, we spent a long time just going over the plot points for these one book episodes. That was kind of our plan.
Yes.
To do more of that, maybe a little lighter on things like analysis, deep dives, that kind of thing. So
we talked a lot about the whole story the whole time.
Yes.
So
was the plan. Yeah. But I did want to talk a little bit about cozy fantasy writ large as a genre. It's something that's a little newer. It's why we ended up reading this book, because it is emerging under the fantasy umbrella, and we wanted to figure out like what our fellow brethren, what our fellow nerds are up to.
Well, and even having read it, what is it?
I think really the hallmark of cozy fantasy is that it's something that has that fantastical element, that supernatural, whether it's creatures or magic,
like the
or
fantasy
time
element.
travel. Yes, that is present here, but also it's something that is not necessarily violent or like high stakes or jarring
or traumatic. There's
yes.
not a lot of trauma. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of trauma, but we're resolving it.
Yes.
Interpersonal trauma.
Yeah.
I think that's the idea with cozy fantasy, is that you can make somebody feel safe and comfortable in a narrative versus reading some of the things like in epic fantasy, for example, or like grim dark fantasy where you're like, I never know who's going to get murdered, who's going to get tortured, assaulted, like.
That's a good point. So like comparing this to like Joe Abercrombie's first book.
Lol.
Where there's no good character, all of them are bad, the world is at stake, everyone's going to die, it's extremely violent, all of the traumas are unresolved. It's the exact opposite of that. I
think in a lot of ways, yes, but I think it takes a lot of what people do like about fantasy. Like we talked a lot about the duality in a lot of these characters, about some like moral gray areas in these characters that make the whole thing feel realistic. It feels like people in a situation maybe that's more fantastical than humdrum, mundane world. But in a way that throughout the book, you don't feel like worried something bad's going to happen all the time.
Definitely fantastical. Who has money to live in a seaside manor?
Well, a found family, 5 friends. It's why everybody's like, should we get a commune, do you think? It's that. They just actually, the fantasy part is that they actually did it. They don't just talk about it when they drink.
So we're saying cozy fantasy is a genre that has fantasy, but all the stakes are lowered, essentially, and the traumas are resolved, as well as being approachable and friendly.
Yes, I just think for me, the best description, because there can be elements of danger. There can be, I know there are cozy fantasy books where you have characters that are warriors, fighters, there could be battles, that kind of thing. But I think it's just overall the feeling of safety in the story. It's like, this author has got me. I know
everything's going to be okay.
Yes. Yes. So you read it and you are not
You're right. I don't feel
constantly on the edge of distress.
I guess that's true. When I'm reading about Darrow in Red Rising, I'm never really comfortable.
No.
I'm just like, oh God,
what
Darrow.
Is gonna happen? Yes. So I think it's less a checklist of like, it has to have all these elements versus it has to give you this feeling overall.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think what struck me as interesting about this, because it's happening in literature the same way I think it's been happening for a while in media and movies and TV shows. I think for me, it just got me thinking about how we hit maybe peak anti-hero with things like Game of Thrones, with things like, The Dark Knight, and people for a really long time were really hungry for like, what if our hero's actually the worst person? And what if everything is sad and nothing resolves well, nothing ever works out, because that's not how life is.
Even they made Captain America like a terrorist.
Yes.
I mean? Okay, yeah.
So I think what a lot of people have speculated in like media studies is that we hit the peak of that a few years ago, and we're seeing a little bit of a correction, a pendulum swing in the other direction with properties like Ted Lasso, where like it is very funny, it is a very good and well-produced show, but the premise of it is that like everybody is kind and everything is fine, and like we can just watch nice people be happy and it'll be okay. Not everything has to be challenging and sad and like tragic,
grim.
Yes. Okay. So I think this feels very much of a piece with that correction that's been happening in movies and TV for a while. Okay. And so it makes a lot of sense to me that now the world is like, what if we could have fantasy? I love fantasy. I love dragons. I love magic. What if I could have that and just not be sad all the time? So I'm like, yes, that I love. And then the only other thing that struck me from like a writing style perspective is what you brought up about the narration style. So I think this book being written in that third person limited point of view seems like a really good choice to accomplish the goals of this genre as a whole, because I think we can get a grasp on our characters' thoughts and emotions. Like, we're there with them. We know what they're thinking. We know what they're healing from. We know what they're dealing with, but it's not a way that feels intrusive. Like, say, first person, you would feel the stakes, you would feel the pressure, you would be the character, like you would internalize a lot of their trauma, a lot of what they're healing from, in a way I don't think you do when narration is third person.
Even probably with Jamie, you would probably like him less if you were from Mika's direct point of view.
Yes, if you did not
on
know.
The side of Mika.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think choices like that, and also the other choice might be to do something like third person omniscient, where you get all the character, like everybody's internal monologue all of the time. And I think in some of those situations, especially when we're dealing with a lot of emotions, a lot of like sensitive topics, it can feel overwhelming to have all this information. And as the reader be trying to like, maybe this is just a me thing, but trying to like balance everybody's like emotions and like motivations in this situation. I think that can get stressful for people as well in something that is going to focus so much on like healing from trauma and like things that real people do very much go through in the real world. So I think as a narration style, it makes so much sense to me that cozy fantasy would maybe largely adopt this. I don't know if it all does. I am planning to read a lot more.
Now that we've read one, we're experts.
Yeah.
And,
I do want to read a lot more, but it was the one thing about the writing that stuck out to me.
Yes.
In terms of the genre. You know what I mean? There's a lot else to be said about writing style and, you know, use of metaphor, all of that. But I think for me, this feels very grounded in cozy fantasy at large.
I agree with you. I was just thinking, like, who writes Good Omens?
Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett.
Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett both have this. There's a vibe of this too. They're third person omniscient.
Yeah.
There is a vibe of that in this third person limited that I do like. Like there was less of that, but still had that, like, you know, we said at the beginning of the episode where they switches to the other cast.
Yeah.
You know, there is a bit of this like tongue and cheekiness that is still present, but is also less.
I guess that could be one of the reasons why, like, of all the writing elements of this book, the narration style struck me as something that Sangu Mandanna is really using to her advantage, like using in a way that is cheeky, that can play for humor, but that also can serve the purpose of her narrative and can serve her to like fit in her genre very well.
Yeah.
Or I mean, this is the book that people talk about as like, this is cozy fantasy. This is like what it's based on. This is, you know, everything about cozy fantasy. I think maybe that's why we are extrapolating a lot from having read this one book. But I think it's because so much of what you see online, a lot of what people love about this book is that it is quintessential cozy fantasy.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I loved it.
I don't have a deep dive this week that's like necessarily, like, I kept bringing it up because I was like, well, there's really nothing for me to deep dive here. Yeah. And I could have got historical in it, but that just seemed, it was already going to be a long episode. And I was like, I don't want to, like, at the end of this be like, well, did you know in 17th century? I didn't want to do that.
The Witchfinder General.
Yeah.
Like,
I didn't want to do that. So I did have a question, and you actually asked me a question when we were doing this. You said, why are there not more books where the wizards and witches aren't in a secret society?
Yeah, just living out here loose.
Yeah, and I thought it was an interesting question just for fantasy writ large, which is kind of what we write, where we talk about. We don't write it. We do not write it.
You wouldn't read it if we did.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting because I think the simple answer I thought of, but it's something we should definitely talk about, is like this, just the nature of magic. Like, for instance, even in this, there's wormholes, memory erasing.
Yes.
The moment it exists, it is already a problem for the way our world works.
Yes.
And power is intrinsic to magic. You would have power.
Yeah.
So, like, it would be taken or controlled. And that's why in every book we've read, or even privately together, they're in organizations, or they're enslaved, or they're in, you know, an army, or they have to be, you know what I mean?
They're like moderating factors.
Yeah, there's something
there are checks
controlling it, and then it is the power, right?
Yeah.
Or a power. I think that's I think that's it, right?
I think that makes sense. I mean, assuming that, you know, if you're an author, you want your reader to feel like the world you're presenting, while obviously supernatural and extraordinary, feels enough like the real world or real people. You're trying to tell, we talk about this a lot, but like you're trying to tell truths about society in a lot of ways. So then it has to feel like society is functioning the way we've come to expect.
Yeah.
So I think that makes a lot of sense.
It's I would be terrified of these witches. Like, not that they're mean or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'd love to hang out with these witches. But my point is like, you can erase my memories? Who's watching that?
Yeah.
Like, how are we monitoring so that no one bad is doing that.
Yes.
So I did think that even in this book, it was nice to have that element in there. I don't obviously like what was happening to these witches. That's bad. But I don't like that they're all orphaned because of it.
But it makes sense.
It
doesn't just
does.
feel like an unnecessary cruelty that like they have to hide, they have to isolate. They really have to be vigilant to protect themselves.
Yeah, and I liked that.
Yes.
And I think it's so true of the genre and to your question, the answer to your question, because I don't think we questioned it until very end when we were like talking about the book.
Yeah.
We just instantly read the book and we're like, oh, that makes sense. And I think it makes so sense because of what you were saying.
Yes, it just struck me as interesting because it is a very constant like thrum through through the catalog of fantasy. And I think that Czech's idea is really where it's couched. I think maybe that's why you gravitate most often towards hard, crunchy magic systems.
Yes.
Things with a cost, things that balance unchecked power.
And that's why I like smaller magic systems too. Like I like crunchy, but I also want it to be limited.
Like you can only do a couple things.
Yes, because also that makes more sense. I mean, I think we start breaking. You see this with superheroes even, and not to like just pivot into superheroes. We're not going to do that. But you break, I think people are tired of them now.
Yeah.
I think part of that is we've broken the world. We've broken the multidimensional situation. We've destroyed planets. Like at some point you're just like, well, there's nothing really left, and this is all just a lot.
Yeah, what can't you solve, and what happens? I mean, they make so many movies about this. Really, the only other place they can go is, well, then what happens when somebody with that like god level power is evil?
Yes, exactly. And so I think small situations, small magics, small abilities.
Well, you mentioned like Fourth Wing.
Yes.
Everybody can do kind of little lock and unlock doors magic.
Right.
That kind of stuff. And then you get one power that is super powered, but it's only one thing you can do.
Right.
So I think things like that make a lot of sense when you look at it from the standpoint of like make a universe that feels cohesive, that feels accessible.
Yes, and I think even like when books that like this is the centerpiece of the question of power. So like Wheel of Time, clearly it is used as a way to discuss power.
Yes.
Does it corrupt? Absolutely. There's questions involved.
Yeah.
The one power still becomes by the end of it too powerful, where you're like, oh, no wonder. But even then, it's framed. He realizes this going into it. It's framed where everybody like questions and is scared of those magic users.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks, even if they're not, and they are sometimes, politically maneuvering everybody and controlling everybody. I do think that makes that's the whole crux of that system, though.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was an interesting question. It's funny that it is even in this cozy fantasy book for which there are no answers about the magic.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about that, just have a conversation. I found that interesting.
Yes. As a final thought, I know we wanted to do a little teeny tiny, so small Q&A, but on that subject, what trivial thing would you want a cup of Mika's tea to do? Like, what do you want her to brew you to do that's just like kind of insignificant? And what do you think would go into making that tea?
Like
what ingredients? Yeah. Be a witch, Dane. Lean in. You're a basic witch.
You know what I would want? I would want like improve muscle building for weightlifting tea. I want a supplement that actually works. Damn
steroids.
It. I want steroids.
Magical.
I want magic
healthy,
steroids.
Natural magical
yes,
steroids.
I want healthy magical steroids.
What do you think is like the
bark of a tree?
Linchpin plant in that? Yes, tree bark.
It is a tree bark with the roots of a oak. Specifically an oak.
Okay.
No, of an ironwood
Ooh,
tree.
Okay.
I don't know if that actually exists. Does that exist?
Yeah, ironwood's real.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
And then
science on the podcast. That always goes well.
And then the essence of water. Yes.
Hint of. You want LaCroix.
LaCroix of water mixed in a heavy vat of hibiscus.
Oh, yeah, you do want hibiscus tea. I like that.
What about you?
I was thinking, I feel like I would want something that dispels the physical effects of not sleeping.
I thought you were going to say other people.
I mean, now that you mentioned, no.
Dispels other people. Just looks longingly at me and Kevin. She's just like,
Yes, I am a mess, and I'm good at sleeping when I sleep, but also I do not prioritize sleep. Mm-hmm. It doesn't affect me like in my experiential existence when I don't sleep. Like
you
I'm
don't
not
feel tired.
I'm not very tired, but I know deep down intellectually that it is harming my body to not sleep as often as I don't sleep. So I would like a tea that helps to just adjust, just correct even 20% of that. I want that tea.
So you want like magic cocaine, and I want magic steroids.
Cocaine is cocaine harms your insides.
Oh, sorry,
I want to heal my insides.
Well, same thing with the steroids. We just want it like
that's true.
No problems.
Yes, no problems. That's correct. I don't want it to keep me up either. I just want it like when I'm already not sleeping.
Gotcha.
I just want to like do a little damage control.
Gotcha.
I want damage control magic cocaine. Healthy. Magic cocaine. I think the formula would be like very contradictory. Like I think it would be caffeine, but also like lavender, like sleepy time. I think it would be like caffeinated sleepy time tea.
It's a 5-hour energy drink.
Yeah, in a cup of sleepy time tea.
Magic.
Yes, correct. And Stardust, obviously.
Obviously. That's wonderful. Well, I actually think like we can talk about favorite moments and then call it a day because I think we've been going on for a while.
Way too long.
Yeah. So what was your favorite moment of the book?
Favorite singular moment? I think I am a sucker. Maybe it's because I don't read a ton of romance. Like it does make me a little like giddy. Like I get the feels a little bit when they do like their small flirtations early on when somebody like lets something slip and I'm like, no, she did not just say that.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's going to be the very first slip of the tongue that like one person lets the other one know, or like one person just crosses that line overtly flirt with somebody. I think it was Mika.
And then doesn't she say when we have sex with each other?
Yes.
Is that the one? Yeah. That was scandalous.
I know.
I was like, oh my God.
No.
Got to. More scandalous than the big shirt and pajamas.
Way more scandalous. I think because I'm so like not forward, not confrontational, that always like strikes me. I think I feel like viscerally what a big step that is to say something like that to somebody. So it just like makes me blush.
That's lovely.
But it gives me like actual feelings just to read stuff like that. And I'm like, fuck yeah, maybe I should read more romance.
Okay, that's brilliant.
What about you?
I think my favorite moment is the opening of this book.
Yeah.
I really like how this book opens. I like the setup of the book. I like Mika as a character.
Yeah.
A lot. I like Primrose actually a lot as a character. So like the idea that there's this like sassy witch who like makes fun of her like stepmom.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of fucking nowhere and it's like raining and outside and like she's like, but no one's ever gonna know, and then it cuts to like, and they knew.
Yes.
To me, I was just like, okay, I'm fucking hooked in this stupid book already, and it's not stupid, it's lovely, and like, so I think for me, it never got better, it never got worse, but it just never got as. I was never.
Well, it hooked
like,
you in a way you weren't expecting. The thing you love maybe more than anything in a book is to have your expectations subverted.
That is 100%.
And it hit you hard right up front.
Right.
And then the whole other point of this genre is to like give you the thing you're there to look for and give it to you in a way that makes you feel safe and cared for.
Yes.
So the rest of the book would not be subverting expectations.
Well, the thing is, I did get to like my second would be when Primrose ends up being Lillian's sister. I didn't expect that. So I was like, oh.
I think I was just starting to catch on, but not in a way that was big. There's most of this book, like I said, there were so many things that I was expecting it just to be, I think maybe I was expecting it to be more one note than it was. And so there were a lot of
me too
complexities that were there that did really surprise me. Even like the stuff when Lillian was dead, I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
That was my big turn. But I think the only thing maybe I was just starting to be like, what the fuck is the deal with Primrose? She did mention a sister. Shit.
Yeah. I think I was catching on literally in the pair, like
as it's happening.
I was like, oh my God. You know what I mean?
Mika brings up wards and I'm like, oh. And then they resolve it. I'm like, oh, that was the part where everybody catches on.
Yeah. I was like, we're supposed to get it
yes.
here. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Well, that was lovely.
That was so fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for Solstice episode. I'm glad you came on this journey with me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming up with the idea to read this book. And thank you, listener. If you've made it this long and if you're from Aragon and you read this book with us and
hell yes,
you're here, then heck yeah, man.
You're
I hope
a
it was
hero.
good. And just like everybody, I hope you have a wonderful winter solstice. I hope you have a happy holidays.
Yes.
We really we made this because we do have some people who've reached out and they've been very nice, and they're really supportive.
Yeah.
And we wanted to try to do something fun and nice and different.
Yes.
And just like give something for the holidays. So we hope it hit. But we hope you guys have a good holiday.
Yes. Thank you also to Book Talk Writ Large for making Cozy Fantasy a thing and bringing it to my attention.
Yeah.
I feel very much enriched by that. We will be back in 2 weeks to continue our journey through Christopher Paolini's Inheritance cycle. So we will be covering the first 4 chapters of Brissinger on the next full episode that comes out. So make sure you're caught up. Meet us for our first book club of 2024. We hope you all have a magical solstice and a happy new year.
It's just fantasy. We're just 2 nerds and we love our fantasy. Come on and listen to us next time. Find out what our deep dive will be. Thanks for catching our show.